Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. A few things, I guess, before we really start, we have a little bit of discussion. But before I do that even, I think if you have a cell phone with you now, it'd be a great time to turn it off. I think I'll do that myself, yes. And if you have an item on the agenda on which you want to be heard, you'll find a form like this on the table out in the hallway. If you'll fill it out for us and give it to our clerk, that'd be very helpful. It's just the item number and your name and address and so on. We've had kind of a catastrophic, shall we say, failure of our packet processing system this week, with the result that the commissioners were delivered packets that had only every other page of their agenda. Every even numbered page was missing. So, as you might imagine, with a day off Monday for the holiday and the other things that intervene, real life, etc., we're kind of in a muddle today with respect to that. It does not seem to me that it is especially reasonable to expect the commissioners to read staff reports and analyze them and make decisions on the spot as we're hearing each application in turn. On the other hand, I'm acutely aware that we are currently on our holiday calendar, which means that if we don't have this meeting today, which would be sort of one option, or at least not hear the items other than those that had full staff reports, being a total of 4 things. That would mean that applications that were not heard today would not be heard until December. So there are a few options, and we're going to discuss that amongst ourselves, and I'm going to invite anybody who has an item on the agenda today that would prefer to have it heard under better circumstances than we're entertaining here today to seek to have it continued, and I think we can promise you that it will be. If you'd rather have it heard in December when we have our feet under us a little more steadily, that would be perfectly acceptable, I believe. But one option with respect to how we might proceed today would be to hear the 4 items for which we have a full staff report and not the others. And so that's one option. Another option would be for us to proceed, however tentatively, by having staff give us their staff report in presentation form at the beginning of each item, and then, proceeding in our usual way, having the applicant tell us what it is they're here asking us for, and proceed thus. This has never happened in the 15 years I've been sitting on the Planning Commission. We're certainly hoping it doesn't happen again. We're going to see if we can do some things to prevent that from happening again. But rather than make this decision on my own, which I'm not even sure I have the authority to do, I'm going to leave that open to the Commission to discuss and decide.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? What are the 4 items that you had complete packets on?
I want to interject a point there. We have complete packets. We were able to review complete packets. We had to review those packets online, and we have completed packets now. So I've reviewed all the cases personally. I can't speak for the commission. I'll let them speak for themselves. I reviewed all the cases. I had to do that online to do it, and I have a full packet in front of me. So it's not as if we've come in to the hearing and we still only have every other page of our packets.
I have the utmost confidence in all of you. Just out of curiosity, which ones were you given in advance?
Well, I'll be very
You only have
frank about it
because we haven't voted on your items yet.
I'll be very frank about that. I have not reviewed all the items. My ability to review things online is limited. The way they are posted is very cumbersome. It's not possible to really print them off without hours of time spent doing it. And so I have not reviewed the full staff report for each of the items today. And the ones that I have reviewed, which are those that have full staff reports provided, are items 12, 16, 17, and 27 our calendar. So I would add to that, for what it's worth, I would be very comfortable even within the framework of only hearing those for which we have had prior to this morning, prior to today, prior to the beginning of the meeting, a full printed staff report. Voting on the food desert issue, simply because we've had a study session on that, we've discussed it, we were given those materials weeks ago, and there's nothing about that that's changed. Plus, the portion of the ordinance that's missing from the packet is the legal description, which nobody reads anyway. At least nobody of it's got, so.
I didn't read the legal description.
So I will open that to the discussion of the commissioners. What is your pleasure about how we proceed?
I think that since we've got such a great audience today that we should proceed, and if any commissioners are needing a staff explanation prior to hearing from the applicant, that we do so. But other than that, I think we should proceed as usual to prohibit, to keep anybody from being unnecessarily delayed.
Is there anyone else who wasn't able to review the packets? I'm curious about that. No? 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 Everybody, were you able to review the packet before? Okay. I'm in agreement with Kamal. I think that's reasonable. I mean, we hear from staff on every item anyway when we have questions. We make JJ come to the microphone 100 times a meeting. We'll just do it this time too. I think that's fine.
So we're going to proceed as usual today. Okay, that's good with me. The one exception I would take to that is I don't think it would be appropriate for us to vote on the consent agenda items as consent agenda items. I think we need to hear them in turn. So, having said all of that, and is there anybody here who wants to offer 2 cents on the subject while we're at it? If not, the way this works is, normally anyway, our first item in business is to receive the minutes, to do our continuances, both those that have been agreed, and if there are any new requests for doing that. We generally vote on our consent items as a block rather than individually, but today we'll hear them individually. So when we get to those items to be heard, we'll have the applicants come forward, give us their name and address, tell us what it is they're here asking for. I believe we probably will ask staff to give us whatever comments they feel are appropriate on each item, and then we'll ask whether there's anybody else here who wants to be heard on those items. And same drill, name, address, what you have to say on the topic. We may have questions of either the applicant or whoever is here to speak either in support or protest. We may discuss things amongst themselves, and then we'll call each item in turn to be voted on. So let's start.
Motion to receive minutes from October 24th meeting. Second.
I have a motion second to receive the minutes of the October 24th, 2019 meeting. Cast your votes, please. They are received. Continuance requests.
We have several uncontested requests. They are number 28, SPUD 1127, deferred to December 12th. 29, deferred to December 12th as well. Item 30, also deferred to the 12th of December. Item 31, SPUD 1168, deferred to December 12th. 32, PUD 1739, deferred to December 12th. Item 33, CE 979, deferred to January 23rd. Item 34, SPUD 1117, deferred to February 13th. And finally, item 35, defer indefinitely. And we have two new requests. The first is item 18, SPUD 1169, has been deferred to January 9th. And PUD, item 19, PUD 1736, has been requested to defer to December 12th.
Is there anybody here today who thought they wanted to be heard on either one of those two items? If not, I'll take a motion. I guess on the, I'm sorry, did we continue the others separately? Are we doing them all together? Okay, all together.
Move approval on.
Did I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue items 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 19, and 18. Cast your votes, please. Those items are continued. Let's begin with item number 1.
Item 1 is the final plat of Valencia Park, located south of Northwest 192nd Street and west of North Pennsylvania Avenue.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chris Anderson with SMC Consulting Engineers. We have read the staff report and agree with that and just ask for approval of this plat. And I will point out that it is Section 21 of Valencia Park.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of our applicants?
Is there anyone here that wants to be heard on this one?
There's not anyone signed up to speak on this matter.
Just note for the record that staff indicates the design of the phase of the subdivision is in conformance with the subdivision regulations in the PUD, and if there's no more discussion, I'll make a recommendation or a motion to approve the application.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 1. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 2 is a final plat of Southwest 29th and Sarah Road, located south of Southwest 29th Street and west of Sarah Road.
Good afternoon, Brad Reed, Craft and Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard. This is a 2.37 acre tract, commercial corner, one lot. We agree with the staff TEs. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Is there anyone else signed up who wishes to be, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this item? I don't have anyone signed up. If not, I'll take a motion.
Commissioner Coffey's absence. I'll just note the design of the final plat conforms to subdivision regulations in the PUD 1179. If there's no more discussion, I'll make a motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 2. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 3 is an application to dedicate a 60-foot street and utility easement located north of Southwest 104th Street and west of South Richland Road.
Mark Grubbs, Grubbs Consulting, 1800 South Sarah Road, on behalf of the applicant. This is a 60-foot right-of-way that we're granting for a rural area, which would be lots in excess of 5 acres. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions of our applicant? Is there anybody here who wishes to be heard on this item? I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Commissioners?
Make a motion to approve the application.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve item number 3. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
I'm going to hang out for the next 2.
Number 4 is an application to close a platted utility easement located north of Southwest 15th Street and west of South MacArthur Boulevard.
Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road. We've relocated the sanitary sewer, closing a portion of the easement and providing easement to the city.
Commissioners, do we have any questions of our applicant? Is there anyone else who wants to be heard on this item? I don't have anyone signed up. If not, I'll take a motion.
Move
Make a motion to
CE 1009.
Second.
I have a motion second to approve item number 4. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 5 is an application to vacate a portion of the final plat of Westgate Marketplace, also located north of Southwest 15th and west of South MacArthur.
Mark Grubbs, 1800 South Sarah Road. This is one and the same. It was also a platted easement, so we want to do the partial plat vacation to take care of this.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard? If not, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the application with the 2 conditions that are included in the staff report. Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 5 with the conditions listed. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 6 is an application for a specific plan located at 3601 North I-35 Service Road.
Is our applicant present?
My name is Charles Allen, Allen Engineering, 1601 Southwest 89th Street. This is probably the 6th addition to Electro Enterprises. We'll be adding 2 12,000 square foot, total of 24,000 square foot warehouses on the existing building and moving the existing parking lot west behind the buildings. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for our applicant? I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move approval of item 6.
Second.
A motion is second to approve item number 6. Cast your votes, please. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 7 is a preliminary plat of Abbott Lake Addition located west of South Air Depot Boulevard and north of Southeast 89th Street.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. On behalf of the applicant, who is here with me, as well as Chris Anderson, the civil engineer. So this is the preliminary plat of a project that you saw recently in the form of a PUD. This preliminary plat does conform to the PUD, as well as the subdivision regulations. We do agree to all of the TEs, except on number 4. I do want to address it. We do agree that we will construct sidewalks, but I want to make sure that we agree to construct sidewalks to the extent that the street exists. If you'll recall, both Air Depot and 89th don't extend and likely won't. If you look at the image in front of you, 89th won't extend because it would extend into the dam structure. Air Depot, if you'll recall, on the east of that is a police gun firing range, and pursuant to Mr. Privett's discussions last time, there's lots of explosions that occur there, so it's not likely that you're going to extend Air Depot. So we agree to number 4 to the extent that we will extend to the streets that exist.
Is that agreeable?
Yes.
Commissioner?
Is there anybody signed up?
I do have someone signed up to speak on this item. Do we have any other questions of the applicant? If not, let's hear from our visitor. Margaret, is it Ann Paris? Is it Dron? D-R-O-N? No, come forward, please. Give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Margaret John. I live at 8501 Canyon Trail Drive. My question is, they're going to open that up. There's a dead end right there. How is that going to be with traffic and kids?
Okay. Would you like to answer that question?
Yes. So at the time of the PUD, when we received approval on the rezoning piece, that was an item that was debated, and it was decided at the time that the connection needed to take place, and so that's why the plat now reflects that connection to Southeast 84th Street.
Yeah, because we live right on the corner opposite of where that dead end is. But our front yard heads right to that dead end. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old granddaughter that play right there on my yard. And I want to know how you guys are going to figure that out to where, with traffic and stuff right there.
Sure. So if you look at the image on the screen, you'll see that 84th Street is going to continue along. It'll bend down slightly, but there will just be a connection point to the new street to the street that exists, and your street is a public street, so it'll just be a continuation of the public street.
You know if there's going to be a stop sign at that first street once you enter 84th?
I don't know that. No.
Do you know if there's going to be speed bumps going in that area?
We can't do speed ramps just yet, not in Oklahoma City.
Like I said, because right there on 84th Street, there's a whole bunch of kids right there, and they all play. And some of them are young, some of them are older, some of them have special needs, some of them do not. And I have a 4-year-old granddaughter that does have special needs, so I'm kind of curious of how y'all plan on making that safe for us and our kids.
So it'll be no different than the streets in your neighborhood. It is a public street. The reason it's barricaded is the city has policy of connectivity. And so when your neighborhood was platted, they platted it with a stub so that in the future when another neighborhood came in, there would be able to be a point of connection, which is what you see reflected now.
I would throw in here, just like in any neighborhood, we want safety. Obviously, I think the city wants to provide good, safe street design, but care has to be taken on all sides, just like in any neighborhood.
We have signs that we put out when the kids are out playing that show slow down children playing, deaf children playing, special needs children playing. So I'm kind of curious still, when they open this up, how much traffic is going to come through there that they're not going to be paying attention. Because we have some of that problem before we started putting the signs out.
Totally get it. It's a neighborhood connection to another neighborhood. I don't think anybody in staff doesn't believe that there is a higher level of investigation required, because just like in any other neighborhood that connects to another neighborhood in the city, it's all based on the city's design requirements. And if they meet that, then we have to assume that it is at the same level of safety as every other neighborhood. Now, if you wanted to make an argument, I would be on board with saying that we need to change overall the city's street design requirements, but that's not a discussion for this commission, unfortunately. So, this body has been, I guess, what's the right word? We're satisfied, I think. I don't want to speak for everybody, but based on what we heard before, that this is designed to a level of safety that would be the same as any other neighborhood.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers your question and concern today.
I think.
But
Ma'am, I actually live at 82nd and Prairie Ridge, just east of you. So I understand the speed and people driving down that road is pretty crazy, and they use it to cut through to get to Tinker. And that's going to be inevitable. Some will probably branch off at 84th and cut through that way. Hopefully slower than they do down Prairie Ridge, because it's a long stretch there and they get going pretty quick.
It is.
I just hope they put a stop sign like there, like first intersection on 84th would be helpful. But if not, if they don't,
stop sign would be helpful if you guys are going to do that.
And we see that there's a need for it. We went in front of the traffic commission and got the stop signs in front of my house about 4 years ago, and it helped quite a bit as far as people flying through there and cutting through. It's kind of a thing we got to deal with sooner there, unfortunately.
We're happy to look at the options of stop signs.
Do I remember the discussion at Planning Commission on the zoning about this particular connection being that it seemed unlikely that there would be cut-through traffic just because where Air Depot goes
I think it was
doesn't
more of
really invite traffic in
the
that
truck
direction?
traffic was what we were worried about at the time from going into those industrial areas, as they come in on the other side and they get stuck coming down Caden Trails, which is just in line with that Canyon Trail where she lives.
Yeah.
And the PUD did have a technical evaluation on prohibiting
we make sure
vehicular
the trucks-
connection to the tract immediately to the north, because that is the industrial piece,
Right.
To make sure what Mr. Privet is saying doesn't happen.
wasn't exactly the point I was making. Doesn't Air Depot,
I'll cut through. Whenever it's built, I'm going to go that way and get on the highway instead of going out to Sooner. It just goes, there's no traffic, and I drive through, flow through the neighborhood anyways, but
so maybe I'm misremembering. I thought that where Air Depot hit the access road or the frontage road was really not conducive to access to the highway from that location.
it ends almost directly, you keep going down that road if it was there, if you went straight, and that's where Air Depot ends.
No, I mean going north, that where it hits the frontage road is really not a convenient place.
It's an on-ramp.
To go ahead to access. I thought you were further west than.
Off on-ramps going east and west.
Okay. Did we answer your question?
So far, yeah.
I think the placement of stop signs is a traffic commission thing. Your planning commissioner might be able to help you get that started.
Okay.
Been through the process before.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's the only person I have signed up to speak. Commissioners?
If no more discussion, I'll recommend approval of C7113.
As amended on that TE.
As amended, deleting TE4.
No, keeping TE4, just modifying it to the extent that the street exists. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, along the actual road that's there.
Correct.
Right. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 7 with the amendment to TE number 4. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 8 is an application to rezone 6022 East I-40 Service Road from I-1 and I-2 to R4.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Here representing the applicant, Commonwealth Development. If you'll recall, Commonwealth completed the conversion of Dunbar Elementary and as well as working on an independent living facility at 10th and Classen. This project is for 77 independent living units. We're proposing to rezone it to R4 from I-2 and I-1. We are in agreement with the staff report and happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions of our applicant? I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone here who wants to be heard?
I have a couple questions, Mark. So what's left of you to the east is going to be I-2, right?
The developable portion to the east will be, yes.
And help me understand how much of that is. I know Crutcher runs right through that, but how much of that land could be developed and how close could it get to the boundary of your parcel there?
So I'm going to play engineer for a second. The body of water, it's unstudied right now. If you were to go to the east, you're looking at about halfway into the cluster of trees to Coltrane would be developable. So a portion of our property, if you look at the site plan, it was very purposeful. Where we show our detention pond and to the north, that's not developable for our property. So we'll maintain a significant buffer to any future industrial development.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to make sure of. I mean, because you still have I-2 over there, so I just wanted to make sure that if we needed to take some mitigation measure here, we had the chance to do it. Otherwise, 15 years from now, when they go to build that next door, somebody's going to show up here and say, we didn't know it was zoned that way. I don't know if you were here last meeting, but we went through that. Okay. So the other question that I had is relating to, give me 1 second, the sidewalks. Mm-hmm. So are you installing sidewalks in front of your parcel? I didn't fully understand that.
It's per ordinance, which I believe in this area we will be required to provide sidewalks.
You will be required, so there will be sidewalks. Okay, that's all I had.
Do we need to confirm that from staff?
That's why I said it really convincing to see if JJ would say no, that's not true.
I will point out it is a service road, an I-240 service road, which would be an interesting location for sidewalks. But if they're required, we will be building them.
Might see at the Board of Adjustment. How big is the lot? It doesn't look too big. I mean,
We're under 5 acres, we're 4.7.
okay, so it's not big enough for, try to put apartment complexes or something.
No, sir.
So I'm curious now, are they required to build sidewalks or not?
It depends what the service road is designated. If it's an arterial street, then yes, they'll be required. Generally, along highways, we don't require sidewalks, but since it's separated from the highway, it's not an on-ramp, it just depends on how it's classified.
So that's a maybe.
You gave me a false thumbs up over there, JJ. I want that noted in the record. Cindy, false thumbs up.
I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Do we have any other questions of our applicant? Not, I'll take a motion.
I'll recommend approval of PC 10624.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 8. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you.
It is approved.
Item number 9 is an application by H2O Nursery to rezone 4700 Northeast 36th Street from C1 to SPD 1163.
Good afternoon. So we are...
Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sophia Tahir on behalf of H2O Nursery. We are looking to do a rezone of the property. It's already currently zoned a commercial property, but we would like it to be rezoned, or the spud, excuse me, for 1163 to permit us to be able to grow and bake there.
Commissioners, do we have any questions of our applicant?
Yep, I have just a few, and it's about the use units that are permitted in your application. You're saying, so the purpose is just to do a bakery and a place to...
Yes, so we won't have CO2 or anything like that in this actual location. We do have another commercial location that's already properly zoned for that. We simply bake at this location. When we originally purchased the property, it was commercially zoned. And then that's when we came back and understood that it would have to be a special permit use there for this.
But the current application talks about permitted uses including things like, I guess these are the things of concern to me, alcohol, beverage, retail sales.
No.
Am I looking at the wrong one? Am I confused?
No, that they're in there, but I think it's currently zoned C1, so these are the uses that would be permitted currently. What I understood from the application was that what this added was custom manufacturing, which is what was required for the commercial kitchen, for the baking.
Yes,
right?
correct. You're 100% correct.
So essentially, these are all uses that would already be allowed today. She's just supplementing that to include the custom manufacturing for baking.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions?
I've got one question for staff. And this is, I struggle with the idea of, I'm not trying to get into a big discussion here, but lot coverage. Why did we make the comment to make sure that the lot coverage is the same as R1? And kind of, I guess philosophically, like, why do we care again about lot coverage? I'm trying to figure out like why I care about lot coverage.
To keep it consistent with it's really residential in the area, and all the other lot coverage is 50%, so we just want to maintain that.
Is it a concern that the character would be changed if we allow them to?
She intends to use the existing house, and we're just trying to keep it the same, like I say, the same character as what's around it.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm not going to burden it here. I'm curious, like, what are our thoughts on lot coverage? I don't know. Anyway, all right, never mind. Sorry.
As I said, I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone here who wants to be heard? If not, I'll take a motion.
I move approval of item 9.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 9. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Item 10 is an application to rezone 8013 Northwest 122nd Street from PUD 361 to SPUD 1164.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Troy Downing, RBA Architects, 14918 Hertz Quail Springs Parkway, here for the applicant. Read the staff report. I do have taken one exception to the technical evaluation number 1, asking that the shared drive align with the road across the street. That has already been platted. The plat has been filed, and the street exists. So I asked that to be amended to modify that the street is existing.
I want to make sure I understand that. So the drive that you're referencing is already constructed as part of the plat is the one that you're connecting into. It doesn't show up on our maps, but for those of you that are not familiar with this intersection, which happens to be a mile from my home, there's some development going on there that's not doesn't appear on in our staff aerial just because it's so new.
It would be the drive just to the left of the building.
That's the drive that's put in, but it's on the west side of where your subject parcel is what I'm trying to articulate to my fellow commissioners. And that's what you're saying doesn't align across the street?
Correct.
So they're wanting you to move that.
Pardon?
The staff report's asking you to move that. That's what you're objecting to.
Yes.
Seems like a reasonable issue that he's got there. Can someone explain to me why we have that in there as a TE?
It must be fairly new. I don't think we knew it existed.
Okay,
If it's
it
already
exists.
there, we're
It's
fine
there.
with that. Yeah.
Yep.
They just did the final walkthrough last week on it.
So that drive, again, just if this only makes sense in my head, someone tell me, but let me explain to you. So if you look on this drawing, there's a parcel there that's outlined as retail on the east side that fronts the west side of Council, east side of this sort of empty tract. North of that is an office. There's a street now that goes in between that office building and that retail that comes around and bends back down and then goes along the west side of his subject parcel and comes and connects down to 122nd. And it's already, it's there. It exists. So it doesn't show up here, but it's there. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So, if I can, I have a question on another issue for staff. There's nothing in his MDS that references EMD signage. For C3, do we need to specifically prohibit that? To prevent it? Or is that not an issue?
If you want to prevent it, you need to specifically include that.
Yeah, we're going to need to include that in your MDS.
We have a problem with that.
Okay. So, all right, I'll make that amendment in just a minute. That's all I've got on this one.
Anyone else? I don't have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard? Commissioner Cravens?
Okay. If there's no more discussion, I'll make a motion to recommend approval on SPUD 1164, deleting TE number 1, but adding into the master design statement under signage, the prohibition of EMD signage.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 10, deleting TE number 1 and adding a prohibition on EMD signage. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 11 is an application to rezone 225 East Britton Road from O2 to SPUD 1166.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzel, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. This is an application to rezone a portion of an O2 tract into a mixed commercial use development to include a multi-story parking garage, retail, and smaller scale office spaces. This development seeks to provide retail and different convenient services to the area north of Britton Road, which was developed primarily as medical office space. We're in agreement with the staff report. There are no TEs. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do we have any questions of our applicant? I do not have anyone signed up to speak. Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move approval of item 11.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 11. Cast your votes, please. It is
Thank you.
approved.
Item 12 is a comprehensive plan amendment proposed for to change the land use topology area from urban reserve and urban low to rural medium located on the south side of Southwest 89th and west of South Council Road. We have a presentation.
Hi, Kelly Driscoll, Planning Department. Sorry about my voice. Here today to take you through CPA.
Will you pull the microphone down just a little bit, please?
2019-0003. The request is to change the land use typology from urban reserve and urban low to urban medium, rural medium. It's located on the north side of Southwest 89th Street and west of South Council Road. It's approximately 19 acres. There is an associated zoning case. Staff is recommending approval of the application, and I'll take you through the staff report in the following slides. So we're in the southwest quadrant of the city on Southwest 89th Street between South Council and County Line Road. It's currently designated urban reserve and urban low, abutted on the east by rural medium. And rural medium recommends lot sizes of 2 to 5 acres. The purpose of the urban reserve designation is to provide for future urban development whenever services become available. And here's a picture of the zoning in the area. The site itself and everything abutting it is AA. There's some pockets of RA in the area, as well as some PUDs allowing single-family residential and some industrial associated with the airport to the east. The land use is rural residential for the most part. South of Southwest 89th is some larger undeveloped tracts. The site is served by city water and is unserved by sewer. This is a little bit more of a detailed picture of the sewer in the area. The orange and red lines are existing sewer lines. So you can see that the subject site is within a subshed that is completely unserved by infrastructure. There are some arterial resurfacing projects, specifically on Southwest 89th and South Council. The site has a rural fire service level, and station number 26 is located to the southeast. Oklahoma City and Mustang also have automatic aid agreements for structure fire calls. So considerations for changing the LUDA: it is within an unserved sewer shed, and infrastructure is not within reasonable proximity. Rural residential development is present in areas to the north, east, and west, and large tracts of undeveloped land remain to the south. So again, staff is recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, do we have any questions?
The only question I have on the sewer shed is this area contemplated for sewer? Is it within the planning phase now, or is it not even, that infrastructure isn't even planned yet?
It's not anywhere in the near future, yeah.
All right, thanks.
I do have someone signed up to speak. Martin Fee, is it? Give us your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Martin Fee. I live at Southwest 89th Street, 8733. I'm adjacent to this property on the west side. Our property is immediately adjacent on the west side. There's several reasons why we'd oppose this. For one, us and some other neighbors in the area are living in an agricultural area. I've had pigs. I'm planning to next year have more pigs, things like that, and bringing in a residential right adjacent to me will really seriously impact our privacy, our serenity, the character there. The way our house is situated, we have our balcony off of our bedroom we're at a higher elevation than them, and we're out there with our view looks straight out across that way. And so standing on our bedroom balcony now, we would have a residential area immediately below us looking right up into our private front, our front area of our property. So we're opposed to it for many reasons. Another is the wildlife use that to cross, and if you could leave that up, kind of looking at it. But the wildlife cross that area. There's a lot of deer, coyotes, turkeys, and things like that. And the hill peaks right where our property is. And if we develop down there, it'll push all those animals up the hill where it's a lot more dangerous for them to cross the road We've already lost some of our guinea birds out there just over that hill. So the animals use that area to cross through, and they're going to get pushed up into a more dangerous area. Our property will be immediately impacted. The whole front half of our property is adjacent to that. And with up to 10 homes that could go in there, I could have 3 backyards adjacent to my front now. We've looked at the OKC plan, and we've retired there. My wife and I just retired recently. We're planning to stay there and are hoping more like-minded agricultural people will move in next door, 7-acre places, and do things like we're doing, where we're having animals. Bringing a neighborhood up there would disrupt all that for all of us.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of our guest?
My final statement is that we've been relying on the plan and planning our lives based on the way the plan is. To change it suddenly would impact us directly.
What was your first name? I'm sorry.
Martin.
Martin?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Do we have any discussion, comments, questions?
I think I have questions, and I apologize for not being quite as familiar with the area, having not been to the area anytime that recently. But I guess my question is, as far as the long-term thoughts about this area, it seems to me like there's been a lot, that we've approved a lot of development in this area of higher density projects. It seems like the city is making an investment as far as in the infrastructure with the roads and the incoming turnpike. Isn't that somewhere that's got to be relatively close to this area as well?
Yes.
So it seems counterintuitive that we would change, that we would want to stick to any sort of development, any sort of rezoning that would limit the ability for us to that would go against more density. And I have great respect for the idea that the people who live there should have the opportunity to, live peacefully with the property that they own. But it seems like we should, I don't know, I guess I'm throwing this out there for the discussion, is we're already investing consistently in the infrastructure. We're already investing, so why would we go against that, I guess?
I think this commission and the city generally has to figure out at what pace is it okay to redevelop. Because we get a lot of, like, I understand people want to purchase, a piece of land, and they're purchasing it because of the uniqueness of whatever's around it, whatever decision-making has gone into that. But the one constant in the city is definitely change, and the idea that growth happens on some scale. At what stage of the city's life, in any certain corner of it, do we put a glass bubble over it and say, this land needs to stay as is in perpetuity for however long? Who decides how long? Who decides which portions of land get that bubble? And what makes it okay? What changes make it okay to go to that next level of density?
Well, I think,
and unfortunately,
That's actually all spelled out in the plan, and you're the one who makes that determination.
well, and
That's what we're here for.
I would say, I think Commissioner Privet would say that there's one of those glass domes over the entirety of Ward 4, right? Which, but if you look at this application, I respect Martin. I'm not apathetic to his argument, but what they're proposing and what the applicant on the next item is proposing is exactly what's adjacent to it. And you're absolutely right. What's not reflected on our comp plan map here that I'm staring at is the reality that exactly 2 miles north of here, there's going to be a full interchange linked to the turnpike, which is not, it's not coming kind of soon. It's coming really soon. And that's going to connect all of this. And it's going to put development pressure on this whole area. I want you to know that it is coming. When that turnpike, when they connect, if you want to speak, come back up to the microphone, please. When they connect all that and it's all open, what people are going to start coming in here with are applications for urban low and things like that, which is much more residential, which is, if we bent around this little area of Mustang and got around the corner to the other pocket of where Oklahoma City and Mustang come together, that's to your point, what we've been seeing come through already in anticipation of that turnpike. So it is going to come.
Well, I understand it's coming, and I'm not opposed to growth. And I'm in favor of her developing that property, but under the current zoning, there would be 5 to 7 acre places would fit in there. 2, maybe 3 houses would be there instead of 10.
I understand. And our job is to decide whether or not we think that's appropriate.
Right, and the bubble you're talking about is what you guys drew in this plan, and you said that dark green area is where those heavier densities should go, and where I'm at should stay the way it is until further development occurs. In years, once that green area is impacted and full, then you're going to have to expand it out. That's the way the city goes, but it isn't there yet.
Well,
and they're saying the infrastructure's there.
What I would say about that is, it doesn't work exactly like that. There's no bubbles, first of all.
Yeah.
Change is gradual, and it happens sort of in layers. Nobody's talking about, building a 7-Eleven on this property. It's a change from 5 acre, which is what could be built there now, to the request being for 2 acres plus. So it's a gradual change, and it moves gradually. The question I have about this, and that I would pose to staff, Kelly, if you don't mind, there's no question that the actual extension, which has been long contemplated but is now happening, of the turnpike is going to create all kinds of pressure for development in this area. What is the question or issue with respect to sewer in this area? Is this a place where it is difficult to extend sewer? Is there an actual reluctance to extend sewer, or is it just not happened yet?
I hesitate to speak for the utilities department, but it is completely unserved now. The sewer shed, the subshed to the east is a little bit tricky and kind of at capacity. So, Jeff, I don't know if you have any more insight.
Yeah, just to kind of mirror that, and the sewer shed line, which is on one of the previous maps here, is about, I think, a quarter mile to the north. So it's, in other words, this is at the farthest extent. So it's going to be a very long time because sewer has to be built up from the south. It's a long ways away. So yeah, it's close to urban amenities and urban infrastructure like the new freeway, but it'll be a long time before sewer can kind of naturally make its way up there through sewer extensions all the way up to this point. And it's not at a place, it doesn't appear to be a place, and utilities can speak to this, where you can kind of engineer your way into it. So it is in a difficult spot with regard to sewer.
Well, then the water isn't easy either. We're at the far end of the water line. If there's a drop in water pressure anywhere in the city, we have no water. So we've put in a cistern so we collect water in case the city's out of water. We have a little bit to get us by. It's not appropriate for a well. I checked into the water department, and they said there's not enough well water there to support a house. So it's not appropriate to drill wells. The water barely makes it out there, and there's no sewage.
So did you have something you wanted to add to the discussion?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there has been rural development coming through this area already, so it's hard to get a sewer main through all that development that's already occurred through this area. So we're kind of at the very northern, or the very highest part of the basin here, so the sewer main would have to be extended all the way up through the basin to get to this point. They're well outside of the typical distance that we were required to extend. So.
Well, that's not going to, just so we're clear, like we haven't all seen these applications, that's not going to stop somebody from coming through here and telling us that DEQ allows half-acre sewer, right, aerobic systems, and wanting half-acre lots. So, look, we can talk about this for a long time. I'm in support of the application. I think we should make a motion. If there's no more discussion or there's not anything else we need to discuss, I think we should move on this thing.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. If there's not any other discussion that the commissioners would like to offer, then yes, I'll take a motion.
I'll recommend approval of the comp plan amendment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve amendment to the comprehensive plan, item number 12. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 13 is an application to rezone 8601 Southwest 89th Street from AA to RA2.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Atchley, 11812 Sorrento Lane. This is my application.
So what is it that you're going to do with this property?
My father passed away last March. I haven't lived there in 40 years. I did live there 2 years when nothing was developed out there. We had a dirt road. I have 2 grown sons and 7 grandchildren. I have sons that potentially would like to move there because we have a riverine or blue line that's on one section of the property, the westward property. It's possible that we can only put 2 homes there. My husband and I are not as young as we used to be. We might not be able to sustain the other 12 acres. So we're just contemplating a potential possibility. So the potential for having an acreage that would be more than 2 acres exists, but the potential to have less than 5 acres also exists. This is just an investigation. We're looking to have a rezoning so that we can proceed with further family discussion.
Commissioners?
Nothing less than 2 acres, though?
No, sir. My children are opposed to that. They live on acreages right now. 2 acres. Well, that's not true. One lives on a half acre.
Well, so the request is for 2-acre residential districts.
RA2, which I believe is 2 to 5, is my understanding.
I don't have anyone signed up to speak. I'm sorry, I didn't have that. Did you wish to be heard? Oh, yes, it does too. Sorry. Come forward, please.
Yeah, I don't know if it was clear. Martin Fee again. I live again on the adjacent property. This is the same piece of property we were just talking about a moment ago, and I oppose it for the same reasons. Hearing her say she's going to put, maybe 2 homes in there, I think that's great news. That's what we would kind of look for.
The potential is maybe 4. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I suppose the potential is 4. I have a brother who is not interested, who lives in Pennsylvania, but I don't know if one of those grandbabies wants to do 4-H. I'm a retired educator from Mustang Public Schools at the central office as the director of instructional programs. I'm a firm supporter of 4-H. My father was a judge.
Address us, if you would, Martin. What she can do and what she will do are 2 different things. The zoning would certainly allow her, to be these, for there to be these 2-acre tracts. That doesn't necessarily mean she will. I just note for you that our staff report provides the information for us that with what is within our purview, objectively looking at the application, 2-acre lots are considered compatible when they're adjacent to 5-acre lots in AA. So we don't have a lack of compatibility here. We just ruled that the comp plan was appropriate because adjacent to this is the exact same comp plan designation that we just created. I think this is fairly straightforward. I do not mean to seem insensitive. I'm just trying to convey to you that, objectively speaking, while it may not be exactly what you want, it is appropriate in my view. So I have to support the application here for the same reasons I supported the comp plan amendment. I don't want to belabor the point. If there's other discussion, somebody say something, but we sort of just had it. So I'm in favor of the application for all the reasons I just explained.
All right, well, thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Is there anybody else who wish to be heard?
In a sense, this is a family compound.
Yes, sir, I suppose it could be. The Waltons revisiting Oklahoma City.
With no other discussion, I'll move approval of PC 10616.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 13. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you very much.
Item 14 is an ordinance for public hearing and recommendation amending Chapter 59, to enact a new section, which would be a Healthy Neighborhoods Overlay District. And it's associated with the next item, item 15, which we would be applying that overlay. The city is the applicant. Councilwoman Nikki Nice is proposing this new ordinance that would apply to the zip code 73111 in an effort to prevent or to, I guess, incent, allow grocery stores, or to at least not inhibit them. The perception being that allowing certain small box retail uses might prevent that from happening or have a negative impact.
Commissioners, we have studied and discussed this item at study session, and I think we have explored it fairly fully. I don't have anyone, well, no, I said you too. I have someone signed up to speak on this issue. Do we have any questions of staff before we move forward here? No? No? John Pettis? Mr. Pettis, give us your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, my name is John Pettis, 1332 Northeast 54th Street, Oklahoma City. I'm a resident of zip code 73111, and I have to express my concerns regarding this item. Number one, I believe the ordinance is not needed for the following reasons. Number one, while everyone should be concerned about healthy lifestyles, I believe that this can and should be accomplished by education of the residents about healthy living and not by dictating a legislation of where they can buy what they want to buy with this ordinance. This ordinance only affects zip code 73111, and this is not the only zip code in Oklahoma City that has health problems. This ordinance should apply citywide, as all of the city has pockets of poverty and health issues. There's a pending case that is item number 34 on the agenda, and I know it's been tabled, that this ordinance will affect adversely. This item has been continued 3 times, and today will make the 4th time if it's continued until February. This ordinance, when they were trying for the owner, when they proposed for the changing of the property, they had no protesters. Yet the owner is being denied the highest and best use of their property. There may be several of you that have been here longer than 3 years. This same owner had a sale of this property about 5 years ago. This same thing happens. This property, the commission tabled this same piece of property, and the buyer, once it was finally approved, went through the council, the buyer changed their mind and decided another location. The city has gone on record as supporting businesses along Northeast 23rd. If this ordinance is approved, the same potential builder of this business could go east a couple of 100 feet, and this ordinance would not apply to them. It's still in the same zip code. What kind of signal does this send to someone who's wishing to establish a business and create jobs? The ordinance will be unenforceable. Who will be the one enforcing this ordinance for compliance, as it will only affect this one store. All of the existing stores would not be covered by the number of square feet. They have fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and meats. The Planning Commission and the city just recently approved a large portion of land, which was several acres, in zip code 73111, for an organic garden for the residents to purchase healthy fruits and vegetables. This facility is up, and I'm sure it's in operational now. Since the beginning of the development of this ordinance, there has been the announcement of 2 full-size grocery stores in the area, which will begin to address the food desert issues. One will open in a few weeks. I would ask that this commission table this item indefinitely, as it is not needed.
Do you have any questions of Mr. Pettis? Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any discussion? I don't have anyone else signed up to speak.
Did you say Lewis?
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak.
Is that 10?
We're on item number 14.
Oh, okay.
Did you wish to be heard?
No, I want to be heard on the next item, number 15.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
Well, I think, I know that we've had numerous discussions on this already, so I guess I'll just make sure to reiterate the fact that while I recognize that the Oklahoma as a whole, and Oklahoma City certainly, have a variety of health issues, I think it's been stated numerous times and through numerous studies that the zip code 73111 uniquely has significant healthcare issues that are greatly stated in the Lynn Institute report, and I'm happy to share that with any members of the commission. But again, we've had this discussion numerous times. I still think that this is a very worthwhile proposal. I still think it's an excellent idea. Councilwoman Nice is strongly in support, and I am too. So I hope that you'll join me in voting yes. And assuming there's no other comments, I'd like to move approval. I guess we're still...
Mine may not even, be of value. I just have a question because I have property located...
Ma'am, give us your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Genovia Lewis, and I have property located on... I live in Zone 2, but I have property located on Lottie.
Give us your address.
If
we were going to mail you something, where would we send it?
2400 Northwest 114th Street in Oklahoma City.
Thank you.
And what I want to know, when I received this letter from the city, I want to know, I have property on Lottie, and if they're doing an overlay, and it's residential property, it's a half an acre that I own, and I was wondering, since y'all gonna do an overlay on that, could my property be included in it also?
Are you asking that we include it, or are you wondering if it will be included?
I would like to know if it could be included in the overlay of that area, because where that side, it said the subject matter, I don't know where that's located. Is that on 21st, 26th? Where is it located? Because it says subject matter here off of Kelly, North Kelly Avenue.
Well, ma'am, it's the entire zip code, but this would only impact the ability of certain commercial
But that's
properties.
what I want mine rezoned. It's residential, and I want it rezoned to commercial. And so that's why I'm here to see if I can before I pay the $1,500.
Gotcha.
So let me see if I can figure out what it is you're really asking us. If your property lies within zip code 73111.
It does.
Yes, it would be included under the overlay, because the overlay covers the entire zip code.
And so I can convert.
But it doesn't change your zoning.
Yeah, it doesn't change your zoning in any way, nor does it make you any more or less likely to be able to rezone your property.
Oh, okay. So I should just go on and pay the $1,500?
Yeah,
Make sure?
I didn't say that, but I'm sure, I'm sure if you discuss your ideas with staff, they may be able to give you some guidance.
Yeah, I would encourage you to visit with city staff, and we can certainly direct you to who you can talk with about your application, where it is, whether or not they would think it'd be appropriate, the concerns they might have that would show up in a staff report. I mean, you're hearing these discussions today. I think that's the first step for you.
Yeah, I just want to find out where that area is, which street it's on, and if my property can be rezoned for commercial.
You know what? I have your name and address right here on item number 15. Actually, I don't have your address, but I do have a phone number. I'll make sure staff has it.
Okay, thank you.
So I thought that what you said sounded an awful lot like a motion.
It is. A motion to approve item 14.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 14. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 15 is the associated potential action application by the city to add the healthy neighborhood overlay in the general area of 73111 zip code.
Is there any further presentation or discussion to be had on this item? No presentation. I do have ma'am, I can't hear you, and neither can our audience. If you'll come forward, please give me your name and address for the record and ask me whatever you like.
Shanita Forshade, 4808 Elmview Drive, Dale City. And I own property over here. I'm trying to understand what exactly are you doing with the property, with the area?
Essentially, in the 73111 zip code, anybody that wants to open a discount like retail store like a Dollar General would be prohibited unless they provided a certain amount of square footage for fresh fruits and vegetables and other fresh items. So you couldn't build a dollar store in 73111 unless you met certain criteria that's in this overlay.
And that's 500 square feet. Is that correct?
Is that correct, JJ?
So if I decided to open...
Ma'am, you're going to have to come forward if you want to speak.
If I decided to open up something over there on the east side at the 7311 zip code, I would have to make sure I had 500 square feet for fruit and vegetables. Is that what I'm hearing?
It would depend on what kind of a business it was you were opening.
So if you are opening a discount retail store, you would have to do that. So again, the equivalent is a Dollar General, but if you...
I'll just read this to you, okay? It says, a new zoning overlay district called Healthy Neighborhoods Overlay will...
I read that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to clarify.
It's a pharmacy or 500 square feet. That's what it has to have to be.
I read that.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to figure out, I want it rezoned to where I can do a commercial in a residential half acre. But if I do it, I still have to have a spot for 500 square feet to sell fruit.
It depends on what kind of a business it is that you're opening. The rezoning itself would not trigger...
The commercial, the residential being
be careful what I say.
commercial.
Changing the nature of your property from residential to commercial would not in and of itself trigger this requirement. It is very specific.
Oh, okay.
But again, staff will be more than happy to help you figure that out. Mr. Come forward, I'm sorry. Give us your name and address, please.
Yes, Sterling Mitchell, 1912 Dotson Terrace, Oklahoma City. You can help me out on this. I think I heard you say, and maybe I'm wrong, that the only thing that could come in there is a store that's going to produce fresh vegetables?
No, it just says that if you are going to open a small box retail store, it has to have a certain amount of square footage dedicated to offering fresh fruits and vegetables.
Okay, you said like a Dollar General.
Right.
Okay, so you said if a Dollar General come in, they would have to, okay.
Yes, sir.
So whatever you put in, it have to have a space for...
Not whatever you put in. If you're a small discount box store that you're putting in, then you have to meet these requirements. If you're not, then you don't have to worry about it. So
Okay.
if you're going to put in a store that sells sporting goods, you don't have to have...
fruit.
You know.
Okay, so the stores and things there, they don't have to comply to this?
No, not the ones
They're
that are already
grandfathered in.
existing. It's the ones that are going to be, that are going to request to be built.
Okay. But the question to me is neighborhood overlay. Okay, so we're rezoning, it sounds like you're rezoning this area. Is that?
Sir, everything in the 73111 zip code, the whole boundary of the 73111 zip code has this overlay put over it, which limits the box stores being able to be built without the 500 square foot of designated produce and fresh meats. Doesn't affect the box stores that are there. It doesn't allow the lady prior to put a store in a residentially zoned piece of property without rezoning it. I mean, nothing is changing other than the fact that...
But why do we want to put this, why would you have the new stores going in, so why are we putting these stipulations on stores that want to come in?
Sir, this was driven by your councilwoman.
Okay, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm dumb to the fact,
Yeah.
but I want to find out because I'm in that area.
Oh, I agree with you completely.
I think the reasons are spelled out in the ordinance itself. It has to do with certain barriers to access to healthy, fresh foods within the 73111 zip code, and it relates to the higher than normal, higher than the average within the city of Oklahoma City and even the state of Oklahoma, indicia of poor health for people who live in that area. So that's what's prompting the adoption.
Well, you have a lot of FRCs over there, okay, which is Food Bank Resource Centers, okay, that people go to, and then also the food bank have areas that once every Saturday they set up for food and things for people in the 7311 district, okay, and they come from all over. So I just think that this is a one that should not be passed. That's my opinion. Because what we're doing, you are someone that's coming in, you're putting those stipulations on them that this is what you have to do.
That's correct.
And to me, that is a discrimination, to me. Because you're telling me what I have to do there. Okay, you already have other stores that's grandfathered in that they don't have to comply to this.
Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to reach backward in time. It has to move from the date of adoption forward.
You just described zoning, which is everything we do. Everything we do is tell people what they can and can't do with their property. And so this is absolutely a piece of that, and you've got to, and if as a city or as a group or board or whatever specific, you decide this is policy that you want to enact, you've got to pick a start point, and it's really, really difficult to retroactively apply those. So what we're talking about
So either you're going
is moving
to,
forward.
either people's going to come in or they're not.
Correct.
Because
So
what
based
you're
around
doing
a-
is dictating that if you open a store, you have to have first.
If you're opening a store that meets this certain criteria.
Okay.
Yes. So again, it doesn't just apply to just any store. It applies to the small box discount stores specifically. So if you wanted to open a store that sells clothes, you're not required to offer fresh fruit. You want to open a store that sells sporting goods, you're not required to have fresh fruit. You're going to open a new Dollar General in 73111, you would be prohibited unless you are going to offer the fresh fruit.
So if I just wanted to open a mall and
Or a
pop store
pharmacy.
there,
Or a pharmacy.
If I just wanted to open a mom and pop store, then I have to comply to these rules.
If it is a small box discount store.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Both Mr. Pettis and Ms. Lewis also had signed up to speak on this item. Did you have something else you wanted to say, Mr. Pettis? Yes, please. Sorry.
Just one comment, John Pettis. The comment was, you're not going retroactive, you've got to start somewhere. If you look at the request that I spoke to earlier, that request was in before this even came before the commission. So you basically are going retroactive and telling that property owners, we're going to table until you can't get it done as it is. Prior to this coming forward, that property owners could have opened their businesses.
Assuming we approved his request.
I'm sorry, no.
Assuming we approved his request, because otherwise he wouldn't have needed to come before the commission in the first place.
That is correct.
We're asking for our permission.
But the point is, there would have been no reason prior to this healthy thing coming forward to not approve the request because there were no protesters. And the property was already zoned. The problem came in when they wanted to change the height of the building. That's why they had to come back and get the conditional use permit.
Well, I respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Pettis, because I am opposed to that development regardless of whether there is an overlay, because I believe that there are too many small box discount stores in Northeast Oklahoma City. And so I'm opposed to that. I respectfully disagree with you, but I understand that point and I respect that point.
Okay, now, you're the decision maker, but you can go right across I-35 and not have to be in compliance with this, and it's still in.
And it's a much healthier zip code than 73111.
It is. It's still in the zip code, but it's more than 1,000 feet from the other small box store.
Ms. Lewis, did you have any? Oh, has she left us? I believe she has. Okay.
I would just add this comment. I'm going to second.
I'm sorry, just a moment. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
James Ramsey, 1442 Northeast 26th Street. I am just a landowner. I do not live there. I would just like to hear the council's definition of food security, if that was possible. Thank you. Can you define food security as you understand it in terms of the city's responsibilities? Thank you.
Well, I think the definition in the recommendation on the proposed ordinance, and this is back to item 14, defined a food desert, and it says, and I quote, "Food desert was defined in the Food Conservation and Energy Act of 2008 as an area in the United States with limited access to affordable and nutritious food, particularly such an area composed of predominantly lower-income neighborhoods and communities."
Yes, I read that too. Food security was the question. Thank you. James Ramsey, 1442 Northeast 26th Street.
I don't believe that food security per se is a question before the commission today.
James Ramsey, 1442 Northeast 26th Street. This is precisely a piece of food security policy that you're engaging in. I, for one, think it's great. I can't speak to what the needs of the people in that community are. It's an interesting door you're opening, and I'm just curious as to if you understand it.
I don't think food security is a very difficult concept to understand.
I'm going to second
speaking.
the motion, but before I do, I'm just going to make this comment on it. I think that for the people that were speaking against, somebody said, I think there are issues that I take with this ordinance for a variety of reasons, Mr. Pettis. Just personally, about regulation of commerce and all kinds of things that come into my head. But at the end of the day, if this is what this area of Oklahoma City and its elected representative and its planning commission member believe is a step to help them achieve something, and they want support for that, I'm inclined to do that objectively because I think that probably, they know that better than I do, the same way that I described what was going on in a little pocket of Ward 8 that he may not know. And if this is a step in that direction, it's a step in that direction. We need to try something to help the area not be a food desert, and to me, this is that step forward. So I'll second the motion.
Well, and I'm going to throw in super fast as well. I have my own questions, but I think that the best laboratory for experimentation of policy is at a smaller scale. So I actually disagree that we should say the entire city, if we're going to adopt this in a single place, the entire city should have to adopt it. I think smaller areas of experimentation are exactly how we find out what works and why we should allow the elected representatives from wards to try these things. Because I think then that's how we find out what works and what doesn't. Full support of it. Obviously, it's already been proposed and seconded, so.
Is there any other discussion? Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
One quick note, the notice that was mailed for the city council hearing on this zoning item was for the December 31st meeting. That meeting's been canceled, so it will roll to the January 7th meeting.
Thank you.
Item 16 is an application for a special permit to construct a telecommunication tower located at 3500 North Meridian Avenue.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, APC Towers. This is a special permit application to allow the erection of a 75-foot tall telecommunication tower. I am handing out, just for purposes of, I guess, the record, a series of exhibits. I will note that I also have a person here that can speak to site acquisition, as well as an RF engineer that can walk you through the data if you'd like to hear it, all of which are contained within the packet that you're now receiving. As you are all aware, the city has begun a process by which they hire a RF consultant on these matters, and so I would point you to his report as well, in which he does recommend approval based upon his review of the technical data. So you could also ask him any questions you'd like. And then your staff in the staff report recommends approval as well. I do want to address briefly, there is a protest letter in your packet that my understanding of reading it doesn't really deal with the use, but is rather focused on drainage. My response to that is, whatever your public works and permitting staff will require at the time of permit, we will have to do. And so I don't believe that to really be an issue to be addressed on a special permit where we're really focused on use. That will be addressed through permitting with your Public Works and Development Services staff. So with that, as the chairman indicated, this is one of the 4 items you received your full packet, so I trust that you were able to pour through this in the absence of all the other items that you didn't get. I did submit my standard memo that I've done, tweaked to the facts here as it relates to the federal law and the placement of telecommunication towers. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and present any evidence that you'd like from the RF perspective.
Mr. Box,
Yes, ma'am.
as relates to pretty pictures, what are the chances that the tower that goes up is going to look like this one?
Very high. That is what is going to be built, is going to be the stealth design. That's what we have applied for.
And is that specified in the application?
Yes.
That it will be a stealth design?
Yeah, it's in the program description that it will be so starting in paragraph 2, applicant will develop its stealth tower in accordance with the site plan attached here too.
And that means this particular thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to be clear about these stealth towers, has anyone seen the stealth tower near J. Marshall Square on Britton Road?
Couldn't see it, it was stealth.
Yeah, might want to take a drive by it. Stealth towers don't do anything for me in terms of improving the aesthetic. Unfortunately, it doesn't make any difference whether it looks like a giant tree that's out of place because we're not in the redwood forest, or if it looks like a cell tower. Did the city's RF engineer look at this, and were they able to refute the data that was presented?
They confirmed it.
They confirmed the data that was presented.
Yes, sir.
I mean, is there anyone that's signed up on these?
I do not have anyone signed up on this item.
So these are cases that we've heard a bunch, and for us, they've become a lot of formality, because really all that matters is we reviewed the case law one time at great length in this chamber. If the RF data is presented, we have very limited ability to regulate their placement and their use. We actually suggested, I don't know if it was because of us, but we were certainly calling for it, that the city needed an RF engineer, because citizens would come in and say, did you guys have someone review this too? And we would say, no, we just have to take some guy's word for it. But now we do, so to me, at that point, it almost becomes akin to as far as I'm concerned, it's akin to a final plat, unless someone can ever present evidence that we can consider, which isn't present here. It's just, we have very limited tools in our toolbox on these things, and we seem to labor through these discussions unnecessarily. So I don't want that to happen. We've all heard them before. If there's no discussion, no one's time to speak, I'll make a motion unless somebody else wants to say something on it.
I'm not quite sure I agree with like 99% of what you just said. The one little wiggle bit I think we have is with respect to specific placement on a site.
Oh, for sure. And we had a case where somebody came in and we had that discussion and moved. That's what I'm saying. Absent of that, which is not here, there's very little for us to haggle over, because no one's asking us to do that, and so there's no evidence that's being presented for that, is my point.
Well, I was perfectly willing to haggle about it anyway, but I am satisfied that with respect to this particular site, this particular placement is the only one that makes sense. So.
Okay. So, I mean, we're ready to make a motion?
I just want to second your comments on the stealth tower designs. They're all pretty poor.
Let me ask if if there's anybody present who wishes to be heard on this item, and if not, I'll take a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion to recommend approval on SP 539.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 16. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you. Might I save my client some printing costs and retrieve those packets back from you?
These are the same packets we've seen every time.
Here, hand this down if you would.
Item 17 is an application for a special permit to allow automotive sales in the C3 Commercial District located at 1800 North Portland Avenue.
Is our applicant present?
Good afternoon. George Mendros, JHM Architecture and Design, Norman, Oklahoma, at 918-606-4067. What we have here is, what we're requesting is from C3 to C4, General Commercial District, so that we could do car sales.
It's a special permit within C3.
Yes.
Not a rezoning from C3 to C4.
Correct.
Got it.
So, generally speaking, we tend to cluster car sales. And that gives me a little bit of pause here. I note that the staff report indicates that this area is due for some street improvements, which it seems to me is the potential offer of a better life. I hate to see an area. I also note that our map shows a number of automotive repair places, which tend for some reason to morph into auto sales places. I'm a bit reluctant about this special permit, but I would like to hear what other commissioners have to say, including...
Yeah, my first question would just be, where are we at on the technical evaluations? Are you guys in agreement with all of the technical evaluations?
Yes, we made the appropriate adjustments to the site plan, meaning that we closed off the north end off, that would be Portland. So there's only one way in, one way out, which would be at the north.
I'm sorry, just to confirm, you closed the northern entrance or the southern?
The southern.
Okay.
Per the request.
Are you aware of the second TE on 17th Street?
I'm sorry?
Are you aware of the second TE on 17th Street?
The others, yes, I'm sure we are. From understanding, yes.
Well,
So you would have one drive off of Portland.
On Portland, and then we have another one on, what is that, 17th Street.
But one of the TEs is to eliminate that drive on
Well,
17th.
I want to make sure we're clear about this word that's in there that's really important. It's the word "or." It says eliminate the drive on 17th Street or increase the distance between the driveway. And you're saying that you're willing to increase the distance.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. The other TEs are to prohibit heavy auto repair
There's not going to be any auto repair. This is just car sales only.
and to provide a vegetative landscape buffer at least 6 feet in width on the east side of the property.
Right. We plan on doing that as well.
Okay? I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Is there anybody present who wishes to be heard? Commissioners?
Is heavy auto repair, is there a use unit for that? What is that use unit? Because it's not referenced. I just want, or maybe it wasn't, I just missed it. But
Heavy auto repair, I believe, is C4.
well, I understand that. I'm looking for a use unit classification, which is basically a 4-digit number, maybe with a period and 2 more numbers. I didn't see that in the packet. Did I miss it? If anybody else
That would be 9350.15.
What is it?
I believe it's 9350.15.
Heavy auto repair is allowed up to 40% of the site with an auto sales lot. So we're just saying eliminate that possibility.
Okay, so I don't need to, we don't need to eliminate a specific use unit is what I'm getting to. You're satisfied that the key language...
As a condition of auto sales.
Okay, and then just so we're all clear on this either or TE2, do we need to specify something in the driveway location, or are you satisfied with the second half of the language as prepared? I'm asking city, I know you are, I'm asking city staff.
Yeah, we'll just make sure that it's moved to a point that it's out of the functional area of that intersection.
Out of functional area of intersection, okay.
Anyone else? Commissioners? I'll take a motion.
Did you not have any comments yourself?
I don't. I've made the comments that I have.
Okay. Man. Yeah, you got all your notes over there.
Okay.
I love it.
I will make a motion to recommend approval on SP 540, amending TE number 1 to require the elimination of the southern driveway as depicted on the site plan, amending TE number 2 to say increase the drive on Northwest 17th Street, the distance shall be increased between the driveway and the intersection with Portland Avenue by shifting the driveway east away from the functional area of the intersection. TE number 3 stays the same, and TE number 4 stays the same.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 17 is amended. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 18 has been continued to January 9th. Item 19 has been continued to December 12th. Item 20 is an application to rezone 940 North MacArthur Boulevard from C3 to PUD 1743.
Good afternoon, Brad Reed with Craft & Toll, 300 Point Parkway Boulevard. If you remember, we came through with this about 2 months ago with a straight I-2 zoning. The request of some commissioners, it was thought that we should maybe come back with the PUD. So we continued the item. We ended up pulling that item. We came back with the PUD you have before you. So in the PUD, we limited the uses to the things that they would need. This is a large truck rental site, so the uses in there in Section 9 for that. There are 3 staff comments. There's a 20-foot landscape buffer provided along the north side of the PUD boundary. It was shown in the site plan, and I just forgot it in the language of the design statement, so we have no problem with the 20-foot buffer for there for the 3 residentials that are up on 8th Street there. Number 2, maximum building height shall be limited to 35 feet. We can agree to that. And number 3 has some conversation about pervious pavement may be allowed. I'm not sure what that is, but line 2 of that says, where connected to public right-of-ways, constructed hard surface meeting City of Oklahoma City driveway construction. We agree with that part. The pavement says we can use it. I'm not sure that we will, but I'm not really sure why that's in there. But if you have any other specific questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners, do you have any further questions of the applicant?
Do you want us to amend that in some way? Is that what you're asking us to do, T3?
It says we may use it. I'm not sure why.
I think they just put it in there for the equipment type deal.
That's fine, and we're fine with it in there. It's okay. I'm not sure. It wasn't brought up with us.
I feel like when we had this discussion last time, there was the discussion was really about whether or not this should be I-1 versus I-2.
Yes.
That was really the big discussion. So, and then we've come back with a PUD. I don't know. I have a little bit of consternation on this, just because you've got clear I-1 to your east, even though it may be zoned differently. I can't remember exactly what it's zoned. But the use is clearly I-1. It's all that light industrial small buildings. You've got mini storage to the north. You've got this R1 tract to the north. This is like the end of the sort of the what I would consider the industrial Southwest Industrial Corridor.
Yes.
It's kind of the northern boundary. I mean, I guess what I would ask, commissioners and other commissioners and staff is whether or not these mitigation measures as presented in the SPUD satisfy what the overarching concern is, meaning that this is sort of the last piece of industrial property you're going to see, I think, conceivably north of here. So,
I agree. It's in the LUDA. This is basically the...
So have we sufficiently stepped this down enough is what I'm trying to get at.
So I think what we were trying to get at is to limit the uses for only what they need. They do have some specific uses that they do need the I-2. It's basically
Well, they need outside storage.
They need outside storage. It's large trucks, and they have quite a few of them. It's almost unreasonable for them to be able to have to put them inside.
Right.
That's the main problem that we have. So it's heavy equipment because they are belly dump trucks. So they don't want any other I-2 uses, but they do need the I-2 because of the heavy equipment. And we did push with the site plan. We have no problem with pushing the site down away from. We have room to push away from the residential in this. And again, we have no problem with the 20-foot landscape buffer. We have in there a opaque fence along the entire north boundary as well.
What about access from 8th Street?
No access. It's limited in the PUD to no access from 8th at all.
Okay.
Have I already asked this? I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard on this item? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion. You said in agreement with all the TEs, right?
Yes.
No exception. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve subject to all the TEs.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 20, specifically subject to all the TEs. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Item 21 is an application to rezone 3500 Northwest 39th Street from C3 and C4 to SPUD 1126.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Colin McCormick. Excuse me. I'm the attorney for the applicants, Mr. Mohammed Mominia and Ms. Loretta Caparani, who are here with me today. They're currently operating an auto sales lot on the front half, north side of this particular parcel. The front is zone C4, the back is zone C3. We've requested a SPUD application so that we can expand auto sales into that back C3 half. We've agreed to all technical evaluations from staff report. We ask that the application be approved. We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners, this application is in slightly different form than is represented even in our latest staff report. The request for vehicle impound use has been eliminated. We met with the neighbors. It was quite a lively discussion. And the issues, the real issues about what their concerns were about this use became apparent, and the applicant was very cooperative, I guess, with respect to addressing what those issues are. So even with respect to what you're seeing in front of you, a few just additional changes have been made to the master design statement to reflect that discussion. They have mostly to do, oddly enough, with the fence around the property and with parking that's really not permitted or legal with respect to the use of the business in any event. So they were sort of easy asks and gives. The owner of the property gave everybody there his personal phone number and agreed that he would keep a little tighter rein on delivery vehicles accessing Northwest 38th Street, for instance, and where people are parking along the street on the eastern side of this property, which is called Newport. The fence around the property is in a condition that was not satisfactory to the neighbors, and so he agreed to make a number of changes to that. And that language is reflected in sort of a general way. Just before the meeting, I asked the applicant's attorney, and through him, I guess, the applicant, whether he would be agreeable to give, along with his phone number, a letter to the neighbors that detail a few other smaller things that he agreed to do that really are probably not appropriate to be included in the zoning document itself. And he readily agreed to do that. So I do have somebody signed up to speak, and I want to hear from Linda Ansari before we
Well, if we can,
go further.
I want to make sure we all that weren't there understand what those changes were. So.
They're really
Sure.
very small. One of them had to do with the removal of the impound lot.
So that's 8300.17.
Yes, which had actually already been done before the meeting.
Okay.
The applicant had already notified staff that that would be, and we've added some language under Section 1, paragraph number 6, with respect to the fence, that it will be properly maintained, that items stored inside the fence line will not be visible from outside the property, from street level. The existing signage for the property is going to be the only freestanding signage that is allowed for the property. Non-accessory signs are going to be prohibited, which I note is also a TE, I believe.
So is that the current 40 feet and 180 square feet, or is you're saying there's current signage there that's...
Yes.
Got it.
No access will be taken to or from the property onto 38th Street. Parking will be more rigorously, I suppose. It will be prohibited along Newport on either side, east or west of the street, with the exception of a small existing parking pad on the northeast corner of the property. Is that all of it? Let me see.
Yes, Commissioner, I believe that is it.
I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, again, there were just a few little items that had to do with gaps in the fence that they agreed to deal with that really are not going to be part of the zoning request. But I do want to hear from Ms. Ansari before we...
Hi, I'm Linda Ansari. I own a property that is just west of his business.
The house?
Yeah, the house.
It's
It's a residential property. It's a rental property that I own, and I have owned it since 2005. And since Mohammed has taken over the property, I have seen nothing but improvement. Before we even had homeless that were over there, people will pile their trash over there. People park cars that didn't run over there. So everything he has done has been an improvement to that property, in my opinion.
Well, I'm pleased to hear you say that.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down. People don't often take time to come down and say nice things about zoning cases. So, with the addition of those few changes to the master design statement. I really think the applicant has done a good job of listening and hearing and responding to the concerns of his neighbors. And the fact that there aren't 10 or 20 of them here right now probably speaks to that better than I can. I don't have anyone else signed up to speak, so if we don't have any further questions, I'll take a motion.
Just for clarification, so after the meeting, these letters of opposition, basically all these people
were there and
they feel...
They left the meeting satisfied with the things that the applicant had agreed to do.
If I could, a lot of the letters are actually from individuals that are outside that 300-foot radius from the property. Most of the individuals that had submitted protest letters were in attendance of the meeting. Some, because it was a little bit short notice, weren't able to come. But we have made arrangements to provide our contact information to anyone and everyone that has issues to reach out to us and let us know what their concerns are.
Yeah, I think this was a good case study. It went well. The neighbors were very apprehensive initially about the use. It was being used at the time they acquired it, just sort of for junk storage, and so of course they were not happy about that. But I think the idea of it becoming a car sales business was very much a step in the right direction for them. So.
And I guess staff seeing the proposed changes, comfortable with the language, feel like it's enforceable and all that good stuff.
I believe they are.
Okay. All right. Well, since this is your ward and you can't do it, if there's no more discussion, I'll make the motion.
Do, please.
Okay. I'll make a motion to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1126, subject to the TEs and as amended, and the MDS as amended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 21 as amended. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 22 is an application to rezone 325 North Cemetery Road from PUD 1071 to SPUD 1157.
Is the applicant present? Luke Loebmeyer. Let's pass this just, well, we sort of are at the end, but let's hold it just to make sure he hasn't stepped out.
The next item, 23, is an application to rezone 1137 Northwest 2nd Street from I-2 to SPUD 1165.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Cindy, could you pull up the site plan, please? This application is a rezone from I-2 into a mixed commercial use SPUD, which will allow potentially a microbrewery, a small concert venue, and then other various eateries and retail uses. Thank you. So this site was designed for a lot of these existing buildings to face inward toward a central green space. There's one proposed building on the site, which is on the west side. It's filling in the missing tooth and recreating the street wall. There are 2 TEs with this application. The first one we'd like to amend, the second one we agree with. The application requested no parking be required, and so staff requested the TE that a minimum of 50% of the parking spaces be provided on site. We have an amendment that I'd like to read, and then I can provide to you all for the motion. This has been vetted with staff, and they're in agreement with this. So TE1, we'd like to amend to the parking requirement for this SPUD shall be satisfied by the parking lot as shown on the site plan. If any or all of the parking spaces are eliminated as part of a future development plan, the developer shall provide verification of off-site parking, excluding on-street parking, to satisfy this requirement. Approximately 81 parking spaces are shown on the site plan. This configuration is subject to a 5% variation during the final design stage, and I can provide that to you.
Give me real numbers there. What would a 5% variation mean?
That's just if, as we go into the final design, if something moves in a few...
No, I mean, how many parking places would it mean? Would it affect?
It'd be 5% of 81, which would be 4.
Okay. I'm sorry, go on.
If
You were speaking.
Quick question on that, though. If that's language that's going to follow the property, should it be redeveloped? I mean, would they have to come back through for a rezone if for some reason the city changed its perspective on parking? You know, is no matter what the redevelopment happens in the future of this property, it's going to carry a requirement for a certain number of parking spaces, right?
It will, yes.
I don't know. That seems a little too inflexible to me for the future. Am I wrong in thinking about it that way?
I think my only concern is that with the area without providing that, will there be...
I'm just thinking, look, I mean, this is, you know, it's Ward 6, and it's not that far from the DTD. We don't require parking in DTD. Have we run into issues that seem insurmountable? I don't, you know, I just... I was actually
Is
coming
your
into
objection to naming the number of parking spaces required?
A little bit, yeah. I think maybe instead it should be tied a little
To
bit
the use?
more loosely to then how the city might change its definitions in the future. So if we say it needs to be within 5% of the city's required number for the use unit, yeah, that seems more like if then we change the requirements for the use unit in the future, they wouldn't be held to some specific number from the past.
If
the city changes its views on parking, which I think is open for discussion at the moment. So.
Our concern tying it to the use units is we don't know exactly what the uses are going to be, but likely they will be the uses that have significant parking demands. And so if we're tied to the requirement being within 5% of the city ordinance today, then we would not be able to achieve that with the site plan.
Right.
And we think given that the new BRT is in the planning stage just a block and a half away, or proximity to downtown, that we will not have the parking need that the city code would require.
I don't want to make a big deal on this one. I think if you guys are comfortable with what you've come up with, I think I'm comfortable with that. I just wanted to make sure it was thought through. It sounds like they feel confident. So that was my one on, please continue, sorry.
With that, we agree with TE number 2. We're happy to answer any questions.
I do not have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard? Commissioners, do we have any comments, questions, concerns, other than parking, or more about parking, for that matter?
I have one question not related to parking. I just want to make sure I understand this, and forgive me if this question was answered while I stepped out a moment. Where will the screen, where is that actually on this site plan?
So it's on the northern portion. There's a yellow box right above the white note.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I can't see that yellow. That makes way more sense. Okay. And so the idea was it would be blocked from the west because of all the building fronts, which was the discussion in the staff report a little bit in the application. Correct. And to the east is parking, so it doesn't really create an interference with anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I did not take notes on item 1 or TE1. Can you give us the language back that you guys are proposing?
You got the whole thing?
I was just going to say, as read by Mark. TE1.
Was everybody comfortable with what they heard? Sounded like there's no opposition.
You'll provide it to staff, I assume.
Yes, we will.
Okay. Well, then I'll make a motion to recommend approval on SPUD 1165 with a revision to TE1 as read by Mr. Mark Zitzow, And subject to TE2 as well? Yeah. I make a recommendation for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve item number 23 as amended. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you.
It is approved. Before we move forward, let's take a step back here. Is the applicant present for item number 22, Luke Lobmeyer? There's also a gentleman who signed up to speak on that item, James Coco. Mr. Coco, our applicant doesn't appear to be present.
Yeah, my name is James Coco. I live at 517 Christian Lane in Yukon. I live adjacent to the property in question here. And this is strictly a residential area.
Well, we're going to, let me stop you. We're going to hold this until the very end of our docket to see if our applicant appears.
Well, he can't come like the rest of us.
We're going to hold it to the end of our docket and see if he appears.
He should have no consideration.
You're welcome to wait if you'd like to. We'd like to hear from you.
Oh, well, we object to this. This is
I mean, in turn.
Strictly a residential area. And also, it's confusing.
Mr. Coco, we're not hearing this item right now.
What?
We're not hearing this item right now.
The chair is in charge of the meeting. We're all here all day too, so if...
There you go.
Yeah,
Hold on.
we're all here all day too.
It can't be much longer. We've only got 2 or 3 items. Move forward, please.
Okay, item 24 is an application to rezone 1303, 15, 16, 17, 21, and 23 Northwest 2nd Street from R3 to SPD 1167.
Good afternoon. My name is David Brewer with DAB Architects. I'm here representing the applicant on this. I'm at 5201 North Lincoln Boulevard in Oklahoma City. The project is called PC Minis, which is intended to be a high-density pocket community of leasable, detached single-family units that are designed with a mid-century motif. It's intended to accommodate residents that are seeking walkable, bikeable area to live that's affordable and close to downtown Oklahoma City. We understand there's some traffic considerations, and we have put in an application with the traffic department. We're on their docket for December 16th, and we're hoping that the TE items that are related to that can be addressed then. We have read the staff report and have some objections or need clarifications on some of the TE items. Again, starting with item number 1, the required parking. This area is intended, again, for individuals that don't want to spend money on a car, don't want to spend money on parking, gas. It becomes cost prohibitive, but still want to live downtown. So having required parking isn't feasible, but is something that we would consider once working with traffic, maybe having up to 1 per unit, not 1.5 if possible. Item number 2, the requirement for the fire suppression sprinkler system. These are single-family homes. They're separated units. They're not detached. Don't understand the reasoning for the requirement, either like clarification on that, but would be willing to offer some fire-rated wall separations between units if that's the issue, if that's the reason for the requirement. So would like to amend that to not require sprinklers, but fire-rated walls between the units. Item number 3, the polycart storage area. It is at the front of the property. However, we have it in a screened wall enclosure that is also intended to be an art feature. If we could get to the site plan, maybe that would give a better indication as to where it's located and what other design features we have around that to prohibit the view of the polycarts, if that's the reasoning for that. So we'd like that just to not be accepted. We're okay with item number 4 without any issues. And also okay with the item number 5, reducing the height of the screen wall at the front of the property. Again, item number 6, the 40% of common space wouldn't be achievable with the design intent. However, we feel like with the side yards that are offered and the amount of common space that is available, it's appropriate for the target market. Once again, people that simply want a starter home and live somewhere in the walkable, bikeable distance from downtown Oklahoma City. And with that, I'm available to take your questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of our applicant? I do not have anyone signed up to speak on this item.
So you can meet the 40% open space requirement? You're good with that, TE?
No, sir, no.
What does it need to be amended to specifically?
Say that again. To not require it.
So
and just
zero open space.
Well, I could look at what the percentage we have now. Unfortunately, I didn't calculate that before we came here, and basically the percentage that's on the layout, which my gut tells me 20%, but I hate to throw that out here, we'd be amenable to that, or simply stating that each unit has its own private, semi-private side yard, and then some common area, open space within the development area.
You said 20% overall?
Yes.
About the cart storage, I just want to be clear about this. We're not talking about dumpsters. We're talking about residential.
Correct.
And what was the thinking about lowering the semi-opaque screen to 4 feet in height?
Yeah, correct. Our written in the SPUD is 8 feet tall. It's what we have designed is a Corten metal mesh screen wall. One of the couple of intents in that was to capture the design character of the historic nature of the area, being the steel manufacturing and assembly that went on in that area. But two, since these units are not frontage units, frontage to the street, they're side facing, this would block that, in a limited way. However, those sides of those units are aesthetic. We put the windows on that side and have some awnings so that they're still aesthetically pleasing. But as I was saying, we'd be willing to accept the recommendation of 4 feet in height on that screen wall in lieu of the 8 feet.
So my question really was not to you. What was the thinking about limiting them to 4 feet?
The limit at 4 feet is just in the front yard. We were okay with 6 going around the back and sides, but a front yard fence is, in the zoning code, is limited to 4 feet in height in front. We just felt like an 8-foot screen all the way around the site would give it more of the look of a fortress.
So let's be real clear about this. Where is the front yard? Where are we talking about limiting it to 4 feet?
The area.
Can we see the site plan by chance?
Toward the street, the area between the street and the front of the first row of buildings.
So we're talking about along northwest 2nd
Yes.
Street?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to be clear.
Exhibit 1, the park, you've got 12 units, but you've got 10 spots, unless 2 of them are handicapped. Is that, I mean, if somebody lives there, where are they going to park if all, say, 11 or 12 of them are full? And then
Yeah. Correct. It's not an issue with the owner in that that's not their target market. The parking stalls are mainly for convenience for maybe guests that come, but the target market are your millennials, individuals that need to start their home downtown that may not have a car. They're going to bike, scooter, walk, Uber, things of that nature.
Your kind of people, Asa.
kind of like Asa.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, 1.5 spaces. 1.5 spaces is the standard multifamily rate. So if we're okay with 1 space, and that's only if something happens at Traffic Commission and they don't get the street parking.
I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this item. Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard? Apparently so. Would you come forward, please?
Sam Day, 1621 Northwest 16th Street. I have one question and then one comment in support of them not having any parking requirement here. The planning staff made a recommendation regarding fire sprinklers. Is that correct?
It is included, yes.
It is? What was that? What is that based on?
Based on a request from the fire marshal's office.
Based on the proximity of the buildings, is that right?
And their ability to get in and serve them.
Okay, gotcha. So it's specific to...
Kind of, yeah, let's do.
The other thing I wanted to say, with downtown housing like this, every parking space you build takes up about 300 square feet if you account for access and stuff. And when we get into urban areas, that 300 square feet of land plus, of course, the cost to pave it is a really significant cost for someone who's renting a 600 square foot studio apartment or something, right? So it's like it could be up to 30% of their rent is just going to a parking space that was required by the city. And that puts the sort of near downtown new apartment housing out of reach for a lot of people that make less than 100% AMI. And a lot of those people, especially people that work in the service industry, don't even own automobiles, so they're then paying for on-street parking required by the city, and it's pushing affordability out of range for them on apartments. And I think when we consider these developments just outside DTD and DBD, we really should look at doing away with this off-street parking requirement, especially when there is on-street parking available right near the lot. So just want to have my voice heard on that. Yeah.
Just for the sake of a good discussion, because your point interests me, and it's a point that ASA makes often, but the flip side of that is to go to Paseo and park on whatever street that is that's in front of those new restaurants they just opened where Scratch is, right? You have this line of houses, and because we have no... I know this is an earth-shattering news report. Most of us still drive. And what happens is we let these developments go in and we knock the parking down, and then all of a sudden you drive down this street on Paseo, which I can't remember exactly what number it is, but you know what I'm talking about.
28. I used to live on the street.
Yeah. And it's lined with cars in front of everyone's houses. And in fact, when I was there, I saw a homeowner arguing with someone who parked their car so that the back end of their bumper was in front of the driveway, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are the issues you also create on the flip side of it when you let on-street parking serve this need that people apparently don't have.
Yeah.
Right? So what's your take
so,
on that? I'm curious.
A few things. I think we're not quite there in Oklahoma City yet, but I think in some of these neighborhoods, maybe Gatewood, maybe the Plaza, this continues to become a really big issue where the on-street parking is just overwhelming. It's not that big an issue in Oklahoma City to me because most residents have off-street parking on site.
That's because we require it, right?
Yeah. Well, in R1, yeah.
Okay.
But let's say we get to a point where no one has required any off-street parking in the Ironworks. Everyone's built a bunch of townhomes. There's nowhere for anyone to park, and a bunch of commercial things come in, and we have the problem. What you see cities like Chicago and stuff doing is you issue residential permits. If you live in the area, you're the only person that can park on the street. But on the flip side of what you're talking about, there's also a traffic issue of it's safer if we have people parked on those streets, especially streets like 28th, which is about a 48-foot or 40-foot wide street that the speed limit is supposedly 25 miles an hour. With people parked on that street is twice as safe for kids because it's able to slow down the traffic speeds through there. Same thing with 17th near the Plaza. Same thing with 15th. 16th is actually the most dangerous street, and cars are going 30 to 35 miles an hour because there's no on-street parking. So while it may be a nuisance on one hand for people to be parked in front of your house or for guests who come to your house to have a little bit more difficulty finding on-street parking, The flip side is that it lowers traffic speeds dramatically on those streets and makes it a lot safer for kids to live in areas that are near commercial districts, like the Plaza, like Paseo, places like that. So love on-street parking. I think it's really great use of land in that an on-street parking space takes about 120, 150 square feet as opposed to the 300 I'm talking about, because the drive alley is also the parking alley. But yeah, I don't think I think the issue is kind of imagined that it's not really that big of a hassle. It's just people don't like cars in front of their house.
Which full agreement, of course, on this. It is a benefit to have cars parked on your street. It is a health benefit. It's a safety benefit. I would argue that we should be focusing on spending as much of our infrastructure dollars that we've already spent on our streets. We should be using that, utilizing it for this feature rather than a bug of on-street parking.
Also,
those streets are better off because of it.
So here's what I think about this, as somebody who's very definitely still driving. I think it's really most difficult in areas, and the Plaza is a good example, where you're talking about either existing or renovated commercial uses that were built and designed at a time when there was just a lot less traffic and fewer cars than there are now. So the infrastructure that's there is not built to meet the demand of the revitalization, if you will. The whole idea that maybe someday we'll have a lot fewer cars than we have now is appealing, but for me, it's still, I'll believe it when I see it. So I have a lot of trepidation about it, a lot of hesitation and reluctance about it in certain places. Here and in this area, I have to say, and there are some others, this is not part of the downtown, but it is an area that is sort of on the verge of being so completely redeveloped that it's kind of being reimagined, reinvented, and I think, who's going to live there? It's actually going to be people who don't drive. I mean, the idea that you're going to build a community for people like that, and it doesn't need parking, seems to me much more possible, if not actually probable, in an area like this and in a development like this than it would be along the Paseo, for instance, where you've got commercial infrastructure that was just simply built at a time. It was neighborhood commercial. People walked there. People, if they drove, they loaded everybody up in the car and went. They didn't drive 6 different cars. So, I think if we're ever going to take a chance on that experiment, it's going to be in places like this that are being so completely redeveloped and reimagined that it might actually work.
The one thing I want to interject on that point is I think we have successful districts like the Plaza and Paseo, et cetera, precisely because they were not designed, right, for a level of infrastructure that would support today's auto-oriented people. If we could go back in time and say, this area wasn't designed for today's, traveling options, and instead we somehow retroactively applied that, these districts would not be successful. That's what I would say. I think to me, if we put enough parking to support today's standards for commercial in the Plaza, and we could redo it from the start, it would not be a district that people cared about. So I actually think, regardless of where we do it, you get the city you build for, and if we want the types of places that people want to be, that means moving past the policies of the past, which we still hang our hat on parking requirements. All that's to say, we've kind of gotten far afield from the item at this point, and
I don't think we have, because to me there's 2 issues. It's parking and it's this fire issue that have got me hung up, because we just approved this entertainment development And not that we did, but we tried to pull parking out of it too. So it's fine when it's one thing and you look at it's another thing entirely that when you set the stage that this is going to be the way it works over in this area, and we start to see more of these applications come forward, we're going to be faced with the same thing. So we are making a policy decision here, in my view. And so I think this discussion is really on point because where my vote hangs in the balance is this the policy we want? And what about this fire issue that we still haven't resolved, in my view? So,
okay, cool. I was worried I was pulling this too far.
No, I think we have to be very mindful of this. I mean,
the next application that comes through from this area is there's going to point to this and say, well, they got on-street parking, right? So the traffic commission's going to be ready for them too. I mean, that's the way that works. So,
philosophically, you guys know me well enough. You make fun of me enough for these things that I think
we laugh with you.
You know that.
Speak for yourself.
I would find it very difficult for anyone to point out any piece of Ward 6 that I would not be in support of eliminating parking requirements for. It doesn't matter on the use. And I think DTD, as a zoning overlay, has proven its effectiveness and its ability to still create an area that people can figure out how to get around on. And it's easily the hottest real estate. So I just don't see it as, personally, somebody's going to have to make a stronger argument for me to see an issue with the elimination of parking requirements. So, specifically on this item, totally for that section, totally happy to approve that.
I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think there's plenty of places in Oklahoma City where it's very easy to park, and I would challenge everyone on the commission, think of their top 5 favorite places in the world, and probably none of them have ample parking, right? Because they're great places. You can sort of choose between having a great pedestrian place to hang out and plenty of parking. You can't really have both.
They are. They're mutually exclusive. They really are.
And we can have some places.
Did you pay this guy? Did you pay this guy?
Full disclosure.
Somebody audit this.
Full disclosure, I used to.
Okay.
He used to work with me.
Yeah. But that's not to say we don't need places with parking, or they're not, sometimes you just want to go to Walmart and convenient, whatever. But they're sort of not the places that inspire people, and they're also not places that long term are in the black for the city in terms of revenue, in terms of how much infrastructure, linear feet of infrastructure we're providing per tax dollar generated. Whereas places like the Plaza and the Paseo are very in the black for the city in that. So it's something I'm, of course, totally for eliminating the minimum parking requirement throughout the city. I don't think we would see the bad repercussions for that ever. I think businesses can pretty well self-regulate how much parking they need. But and especially in these downtown adjacent core areas, I think it's critical that we eliminate it. So.
All right, guys. Are we about done talking about our hatred of parking?
I will say that what he just mentioned, this last piece, is a hidden benefit that even the comp plan recognizes. So, to me, this all fits into the vision that I believe the city has for Ward 6.
Nobody's arguing with you guys.
Nobody.
So far, I've heard no arguments.
I tried to push
This is for the television audience.
I tried to move on and got told this was 5 of them.
We appreciate that.
I tried to move on and got told it was topical. So.
Okay, settle down. Are we going to get an answer on our questions about the fire suppression issues?
Yeah, Mike's back there. He can come around.
Yeah, that's definitely a fire marshal issue. So.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, no, I was just considering retracting my original statement and having it amended to no parking requirement after, based on the last discussion.
I'd stop while you're ahead.
Yeah, I think I'd put while you're ahead.
Yeah. But I agree that the sprinkler issue needs clarification, so I'd like to be available for that.
Don't even think about sitting down. Come on up here. So speak to us a little bit about sprinklers.
The reasoning we suggested sprinklers was that we do not really have proper access. They're putting multiple dwelling units on these residential lots. and they don't have street frontage. We don't really have proper access to get to them, and we felt if we would offer suppression, then that would mitigate the lack of access that they're providing.
Isn't it sort of a side yard amount of access?
There's a limited amount, yes. But you have the one area, this doesn't show the units on it, but where you have, I think, 4 units deep. So, I mean, they're going to have to run, the rig is going to be out in the street, probably behind the parking that they're showing there, and they're going to have to run hoses all the way down by all these other dwellings to get to that back unit. And because of that limited access, we suggested fire suppression.
Mike, are we, maybe this is actually a question for JJ. I mean, through zoning, do we set this? I mean, can we actually say you can or cannot have, or you do or do not need a fire sprinkler?
Yes.
Isn't that kind of
The code has the requirements for sprinklers in it. And yes, if these were attached, they would have to be sprinkled. They have detached them to make them so that they're not required to be sprinkled, but have positioned them in such a way on the lot that their access is really limited to get to these units.
I guess what I'm asking is, aren't you the authority? Aren't you the final say? Even if we say, oh, well, he doesn't need the sprinkler, you could leave this meeting and be like, I think you need to.
No, it's the code. And the code does not require it for a detached single-family dwelling or duplex. It only requires it for multiple units, for 3 or more units that are attached, or if you put a dwelling and attach it to a business or something else, that the code would require suppression then.
I guess I've always understood the fire marshal as the final authority, and so no matter what happens, you could be like, this is.
You know, I'm sure some people think we just make stuff up, but there
That's
is
not
a
what I'm
code
saying. That's not what I'm
that
saying.
we follow that's what the code says. And in this case, when we were doing the review on it, our concern was the access to these deep units that are back off the street. And because of the limited access, we felt suppression was an appropriate option.
So if, for instance, you had access from the back of the property down an alleyway, would you have less concern?
Less.
Okay.
My reason in asking that, I don't feel comfortable from this seat making a decision on life safety issues in regards to fire suppression. I'll let everybody else weigh in, but on that one, I would be inclined to say that you are required, I believe, to have fire suppression.
I think, yeah, we do this. We
Sure.
make these decisions.
That's where I stand on the
They
decision.
more generally come to us in rural areas where they don't have water pressure, and we require them to do things to make sure that in the event of, fire outbreak, they're going to have the ability to deal with it. So, I mean, it is part of what you're doing here.
I appreciate the lesson, but I just think in this case, we've gotten our recommendation. I'm following the recommendation.
There you go.
I'd like to speak to it, please. A couple things. One, like Fire Marshal mentioned, it is not a code requirement. Sprinklers wouldn't be required the way the units are designed. But two, I'm struggling a little bit with the term limited access. We've had issues getting the site plan up, but if you have it in front of you, there's clear path to each unit. There's a clear walkway to each unit. If it's an issue of distance, maybe the length of the hoses or something to that nature, that can be addressed a different way, in that maybe whatever the maximum length of the hoses is, then those units may require the sprinkler, but not all of them. Something to that extent. And then, Ms. Power, Your comment regarding the alleyway in the back, we've been really confused and been looking for some clarification and some information on whether or not that alley is vacated or unvacated. It appears the process had been started years ago to have it be unvacated, but never was carried through. Right now, it's overgrown, it's inaccessible. There's somebody along the street that's built a structure that blocks it. We would love to use that alley for access, but right now we've gotten no clear definitive answer from the city as to whether or not it's available and in what stage it's at as far as its vacation. So just a couple comments. A sprinkler system costs money, and knowing that we were planning on doing detached units that by code do not require it, the feasibility study that the owners did prior to us moving forward with this was not to have sprinkler systems. So it's not real feasible for us to consider that at this point. We're looking for, like I said, other alternatives as far as firewalls that can be built within the units or to separate units in order to slow down fire. But for a single family home, 7,000 square feet with clear egress, and again, what I feel is clear access to each unit, I just don't see it as being reasonable.
I guess my take is simply that based on what we know today, I'm more comfortable with the recommendation from Fire Marshal, and it sounds like, because this is just zoning, right? This isn't exactly what's going to be built. We're creating the framework, and it's my belief that you guys, it sounds like you're willing enough to work with the Fire Marshal with firewalls or whatever, that I bet you guys can find a middle ground and a compromise that gets this project forward without us without us going against the recommendation of the Fire Marshal. That's kind of where I'm at. It sounds like something that can be figured out. I am betting you guys can get away without doing the sprinkler after working more with the Fire Marshal. That would be my case.
Not if we require them through their zoning to install sprinklers.
Yeah,
so.
I think that it's perfectly appropriate for us to not require the sprinkler system because it meets the actual requirements of the code. So so maybe the best way to handle it for the commission, for the sake of moving forward, is just to divide the question. Let's vote on whether to include the sprinkler system or not, and then let's just vote on item 24.
No, let's don't do that. Let's ask staff for a little bit of guidance here. Is it possible for us to, I guess what I'm saying is, would you be comfortable with it? Would it be possible, is for you, for us to simply require, of course, what are we really saying if we require them to meet the requirements of the code? Is there another way to get where you're going, I guess, is what I'm trying to decide here. They're talking about fire suppression walls and that kind of thing. Are there other ways that you could be satisfied?
I don't know of a way without either a different design or a different access plan than what we've seen. If we had access where we could get a rig back there that we can get to these rear units, it would be a lot better.
So vehicle access, not foot access. Okay.
I'll just say, for what it's worth, maybe your idea is a good one. For my part, when it comes to health and safety issues, I rely on our experts. If the fire marshal thinks that this is what has to be done, then that's what I'm going to require.
Is it true that the certificate of occupancy would be required from the city before this is finalized?
I assume so.
Can we instead approve this that they cannot get a certificate of occupancy until, and we add him back in at that part? They get the fire to sign off at that point, then they're good. And maybe they came up with something else creative after today. Do you normally not have a part
that
of
was
the
kind of
certificate
my
of
point
occupancy?
as well. Is there some way we can?
Yes, the way this is designed, these are multiple dwellings on single lot. So they would go through the commercial process as far as getting a permit. We would review the plans as part of that process. But the access issue is what we're kind of talking about, is that where we could, at that point, we could say, we need to get better access, or the problem is us making a judgment call then, after this has already been approved like this, and the board has already heard it, and then the fire marshal's office just saying, no, we want something else. We want better access. We want sprinklers. That's why I brought it up when we were reviewing the plan.
Right. I'm suggesting maybe our approval today could put them on notice that unless they get your approval before the certificate of occupancy, it will not be granted. It would moves it subjectiveness from today, which you've given us your opinion, and I'm in favor of ruling on your opinion because you know this better than me. But if we can get them past it and let them work with you later, or we can continue this, those seem to be the options.
Let me ask the question slightly differently. If we require, as part of this process, that they sprinkle the property, is there any opportunity then for them to come up with a different alternative without having to go back through this process that would satisfy you? I mean, could the creativity still occur?
It would satisfy us. I don't know if they'd have, if it's a part of the SPUD. SPUD.
If it says they have to sprinkle, that's it. Yes, okay.
So, yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we can't say we're requiring them to sprinkle it
unless they can meet.
Unless the fire marshal decides that they have met a standard that would allow them to not. That kind of language is too fluffy, or can we put something like that in?
Daniel?
I think you can do like you do with engineering requirements. You approve it subject to them having an agreement and meeting all the requirements of the fire department, fire marshal's office.
That sounds perfect.
In which case, would we strike this TE, or would we just change this TE to read that?
Say that they have to sprinkle unless they can come up with another agreement with the fire marshal's office, or they provide fire prevention or fire suppression system as required by the fire marshal's office. If they could work something out on that that's acceptable to the fire marshal's office, then
yeah, I think you'd amend the TE somewhat similar to the way we've been dealing with drainage and other issues.
I would be in favor of that.
And like if they can get that access off that alley.
And that would solve the problem, and then they could, okay, all right.
I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but I think that provides flexibility and a comfort level.
I think so.
And I'm sure that you guys are smart enough and creative enough to figure something out.
Yes. Okay. It looks like that's where we're headed. Was there anything else we need to discuss?
We didn't finalize the polycard issue, but they want that one deleted. So that was the one issue we didn't talk about. I frankly don't know where else they're going to put it.
I'm okay with it. You know, the question that I had about it not being dumpsters, both, I just want to be very clear, but also, picking up those things makes so much noise. That would be my concern about having it in this place. They're going to be enclosed. It's going to be part of some kind of they're not going to be, sitting out and on view. I'm okay with that.
Okay. And what did we decide on TE5? You were not in agreement with it? The height of the wall needs to be lowered?
If they can live with it, I'm not going to.
They can live with it?
You can live with it.
We can live with it.
Okay, so what I have is on TE1, you are providing one space per unit? Is that correct?
Well, again, subject to how it turns out with traffic, but yes, we would be amenable to providing one space per unit if traffic didn't approve our proposed off-street parking layout.
Okay, right. So we would amend TE1 to just say one space per unit there at the end. Otherwise, we're okay with that.
Yes.
And my fellow commissioners were okay with that change. We were going to say on TE2 that you will be required to provide fire suppression. What's the best language here, Dan?
They will provide fire protection in accordance with the requirements of the fire marshal's office.
Meeting his approval in some way.
Okay.
It's possible you could get around it if you work with the fire marshal and he is
Yeah, I think if it was reworded, it would be reworded with something other than sprinkler, just specific sprinklers. So we're rewording fire suppression system of some sort as approved by the fire marshal's office prior to CO.
Right.
Yeah, because couldn't it technically be fire extinguishers, as a requirement?
It'll be whatever the fire marshal thinks is appropriate.
Right,
'cause
just
they're
fire
not
suppression, right, not just sprinkles.
TE3,
We're going to leave it?
there was no robust discussion there. We're going to delete it, okay. And then at the last item, which is my only other revision here, is 20%.
Correct.
Open space. Must be maintained. Okay, unless there's any further discussion, I recommend or I make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1167 to City Council with the amendments on TE1. We will change it to 1 space per unit. TE2, we are requiring fire suppression or an alternative that is amenable to fire marshal. And on TE6, we're revising the language to 20% open space must be maintained.
We're deleting
And deleting TE3.
Agreed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion is second to approve item number 24 as amended. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Item 25 is an application to rezone 19,000 Northwestern Avenue from PUD 201 to PUD 1733.
Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, Brian Kuhn representing the applicant. This property is up on Northwestern. I've got a aerial photo of the property just south of Danforth. To the south is a church. To this part of the south is about a 5 or 10 acre single-family home they're just kind of a rural setting. 4 homes over on the east side, several homes on the north side. We met with the neighbors before we ever turned in our submittal, make sure that they would know what we get. I don't really like to have them get a notice and then they get their arms up in the air and then figure out what. So we went and met with them first early on. Back when it was still hot. I remember it was a very hot day. So the existing structure on the property is a single-family house that she uses for corporate retreats and family reunions and those kind of things, and she wants to do more with her property. So again, we've met with the neighbors. I was even getting emails from them today. We've turned in a revised PUD statement probably a week or two after we had those meetings with the neighbors, and so the staff report doesn't reflect some of those changes that we have made. We agreed with the neighbors that we would have a 20-foot green belt around the perimeter of the property. There's quite a few trees on the property, as you can see from this aerial, and we agreed to leave any trees in that 20-foot buffer unless they're dead, and we want to clean that up. But I told them that anywhere that we removed a tree that created a 25-foot gap, we would replace the tree. So on the south side, next to the single-family house that has the large acreage, the man and the wife that lived there asked, if you're going to have a 20-foot green belt and you're going to put up a 6 to 8 foot fence or wall, would you mind putting it on your side of the green belt instead of ours so they could enjoy the green belt? And I agreed to do that. So that's why you see on the south, so it's 20-foot green belt and the fence, not on our property line, but it's 20 foot within our property. So they can maintain that green belt, that's fine with us. We don't really care about that at all. Sometimes I wonder about green belts on the inside of fences. How does that help a neighborhood? But in this case, it will. One of the other things that we agreed to in that meeting, if we were to have a restaurant, say, for example, on lot 10 or 5 or 7, what we agreed to, and it would be similar to Red Rock out at Lake Hefner, that there is no parking or there's no deliveries, nothing on the back side of the building. No patios, no nothing. So nothing would be on the residential side of that restaurant. No outside seating, no outside entertainment, nothing like that. But all deliveries has to be to the front, which is similar to Red Rock, like I said, at Lake Hefner. I'm trying to think of anything else. We agreed with the neighbors.
We told them that the fence would be a consistent type of fence so that they don't see a bunch of different fences along their back boundary. But to the staff, well, one other thing, we also talked about lighting that did not get into your new staff report. They were concerned about lighting on the property. We limited, I think it was 8-foot-high poles in the back of the property. And in the interior, it would have this, what we call the shoebox type lighting. We did a site up in Edmond at Crossings Community Church at Covell and Kelly, and it's kind of like this property. It was inside of a neighborhood, and we used that shoebox lighting, and it works pretty well to keep the lights out of the neighbors' yards. So we are using that. We put that into the agreement, into the master development plan. On the staff report, item 1, this is currently zoned R4 now, with a limited number of units. TE number 1 said, would we put a maximum number? I think 200 would be fine. We have a 35-foot height limit here, so we're not talking about if we did do multifamily, we wouldn't be 3-story anyway. So I think we could limit that to 200. The driveway, TE number 2, we're fine with that we will align with the street to the west, which is Northwest 190th place. We will line one of the driveways with that, and then we may have another driveway further north, so we're fine with TE2. TE3, I just addressed that. We have already put that into the master development design statement, so that's already agreed to, so we will do that. On the uses, I am fine with eliminating outdoor sales display of outdoor storage. I'm okay with that. I'm okay of removing participant recreation and entertainment outdoor. I would like to keep eating establishments, fast food with drive-through order window. I don't want to drive in. I don't want a Sonic. I don't want those kind of things, but I'm thinking of like Cafe 7 up on North May or Starbucks that you could have a drive-in window to get if you wanted to serve people that wanted to drive through. I am fine with no gasoline sales, no large, no personal storage, and I will remove drinking establishments from track 2 also. So we're fine. I'm fine with all those. I would like to keep the fast food to the drive-through order window. On number 5, I am okay with. Yes.
Brian, that's only in tract 1, right?
That's only in tract 1. Yes. No drive-in of any kind on track 2.
Got it.
Correct. On TE number 5, I agree with. We're fine with that. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, I do not have anyone signed up to speak on this matter. Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard? Do we have any questions of our applicant?
I guess my question is with the fast food drive-through, and I'm assuming you had discussions with the neighbors about this.
Yes, yes.
Are there any suggestions for ways that we might be able to change that use unit to make sure that we've narrowed it down to it not being a McDonald's, but instead being something in this, as you've described, or is there no way to get there?
I don't know how you could say you could have a Starbucks, but you can't have a McDonald's. I'm not sure how to word that. I don't know if we can.
JJ knows.
That's a little difficult. Let's, we could go with no fast food to drive through within 150 feet of the north line, which is where the residential is.
Cool. That's fine. Yeah, we're good with that.
Anything else?
You said 100 feet, JJ? 150.
Anything else?
If there's nothing else, then I think I'm ready to move forward with a motion to approve item 25 as revised in the existing revisions that have been made to the PUD, but the following changes to the technical evaluations. In TE number 1, the maximum number of multifamily dwellings will be limited to 200.
Yes, sir.
In TE number 3, it will be as revised in the resubmitted PUD.
Yes.
In TE number 4, we will we will allow we will eliminate all the other uses except for the eating establishments, fast food, with the limitation that it not exist within 150 feet of the north property line on track 1.
Yes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 25 as amended. Cast your votes, please. It is approved.
Thank you.
Commissioner Highsmith?
Item 26 is an application to rezone 1625 Northwest 16th Street from R1 to SPUD 1160.
Commissioners, thank you for your time. My name is Casey Gray. On behalf of the applicant, we are proposing the rezoning of a very old and very small R1 residential home, single-family home, that is right in the middle of what will be the arcade bar on the corner of Blackwelder and 16th. That's basically the extension of the plaza area into Gatewood. And then that's on the west of us, and then on the east of us is a fourplex. So those are SPUDs, 1106 on the west and 931 on the east. So our application is very much in line with the character of 1106, SPUD 1106. In many respects, there are some differences, obviously, otherwise we would just ask for that. But I want to bring the Commissioner, all of your attention to the staff report. We submitted an amendment to the master design statement. So we were initially supposed to be heard back in October, and after getting some protests, we voluntarily continued this so that we would have an opportunity to visit with the protestants and also some of the boards, for example, the Gatewood and the Plaza Business Association. So we met with, I think, almost all protestants except for the ones that we received a few days ago. And based on those comments, there was unanimity. Everyone hated parking. And so we voluntarily chose to withdraw parking from our application based on that concern, because we definitely want to fit in with the aesthetic. And, visiting with Asa, he had a very compelling argument that I think you guys all were subjected to today, which I now agree with. I think that is very insightful. And so we are asking for a few different options, and we're not asking for you guys to choose between those options. We're asking for flexibility for the design on our end so that we have the opportunity whenever the time comes to develop this property to adjust to the environment, because whenever development occurs, however long that may be, we would like the opportunity to take the approach of having, as you see on the board, maybe a smaller design, or maybe using the entire lot as the property adjacent to us in SPUD 1106 has done. So that being said, the application as proposed, the staff report does have one thing wrong. We are also asking for the current residents to be able to stay in place and to be converted into commercial as well. And so basically the smaller design is some version of the current space, or scraping it and building an entirely new thing, or just adding on to it. But it would basically be utilizing a smaller footprint, but then also having the option to mirror what is happening in SPUD 1106. All of that being said, we are mostly in agreement with the TE. I do want to point out a few things. So based on the amended master design statement, it appears that there may have been some discrepancies on the staff report that may not have been included from the original design statement to the amended design statement. I just want to bring those to your attention. I did confirm that the staff report was written based on the amended the amended staff design, or master design statement. And so there's no issue with the findings in the staff report. It is just that in the staff report itself, there are a few differences between the master design statement and the one we amended and the one that is included there. And those are item number 3, 7, and in Section 2, 3.3. And so essentially, number 3, I think that is a non-issue at this point because the TE does address the density, and I do have some comments about the density, but I think that we'll all find that that's going to be a non-issue. So the difference there I don't think matters, except that in our amended statement, it does say that we asked for, basically, we asked for 10,000 square feet or less. In addition to this square footage, patio shall be permitted. The building design, shape, and layout may differ from the buildings depicted in Exhibit B, just so it's very clear that we're not saying this is what we're going to build, this is the maximum we could build, but anything below that within the footprint, and we have some flexibility there. So that's the only issue there.
So wait a minute, just want to make sure I got all that verbiage narrowed down to what your exact change is. It says, in my staff report, it says up to 8,000 square feet. You're saying you want to say up to 10,000 square feet.
No, I'm saying that point I think is moot because I think we're okay with the footages in the TE report. They basically allow up to 7,500.
Got it.
And we're okay with 7,500, except we don't want to have to allocate that per floor. We want flexibility, just up to 7,500, and we can figure out how to design that. And
okay.
I think we're okay with that aspect of it. So that part is moot. Did that answer your question? Thank you.
Well, real quick before you go on then, staff, do we care about the per floor, the 2,500 square feet per floor, or do we care how they apportion their 7,500 square feet? Okay.
Thank you. Number 7, the landscaping buffer. So the difference between this, the first sentence is the same, except at the time of development has been changed at the time of certificate of occupancy, just for clarity. And then the rest of that has been stricken in the amended master design statement. And the reason for that is the 3-foot landscaping buffer, there currently is a curb cut on 16th Street. We have a driveway for the house. And that driveway is, the opening of that is about 10 feet wide. And then between literally touching the house and touching the fence on the east is 12.2 inches. And so that's what we're dealing with. And so the driveway is right next to the fence. And so if we leave the current building in place, we would like to be able to leave the driveway and keep the footprint and design as it is. We can deal with landscaping, but the 5-foot setback, we're asking for a 5-foot setback between us and the residents, which is exactly what the arcade bar got whenever they rezoned their intense use next to our current, I guess, R1. So we think that's all in conformity with the area. And so that's the change there on number 7. If you have any questions about that before I move on, I'd be happy to answer those. Okay, the only other one is number 3.3 in section 2. And the difference there is we added accessory parking shall be permitted behind the building, and because we eliminated the idea of a parking lot. And so we feel like accessory parking behind the building with access through the current driveway into the alleyway or vice versa is appropriate. And so I just want to make that clear that that is in the amended. And so those are the only discrepancies between the staff report's master design statement and the one we amended. So everything else is fine. Getting to the TEs, I do want to say we are fine with most of them. I will address number 1 last, I believe, because that is the uses. I think that most of those uses we're fine with being stricken. Number 2, we're okay with. Limiting it to 6, that's fine. Number 3, we've addressed. Just we're fine with 7,500 square feet. Just please don't tell us
how, which floors those need to be on. Number 4, we don't see the need for that right now. It is 10 feet, so do you want us to widen the driveway, or it's limited to that? So that's...
It's a maximum width.
So that's fine, except that, number 5, there's a conflict there. There's an inherent, those are mutually exclusive. You can't have a 6-foot vegetative buffer and the driveway because we only have 12.2 feet. So we would ask for...
In its current configuration.
In its current configuration, and that's one of the options that we're asking for, is for it to be able to be commercial in its current configuration, some version of its current configuration. And, the Exhibit B does have the driveway in its current spot. So we do have we have asked for the same size buffer that 1106 has. So we are, so that's the issue there. I'd be happy to address those concerns. And then number 1, if you guys want to dive into that, I will say we're okay with everything being stricken, the TE on number 1, except for agricultural processing general, agricultural processing limited, and industrial light. Everything else we're in agreement with.
What kind of agricultural processing limited do you think you're going to be doing on this site?
Well, we don't think we will be doing any. If we build this, it'll be a shell. We've received a tremendous amount of interest from people who do have, marijuana shops, and so a lot of those are produced on site. This is the reality we're dealing with now. I can't tell you how many phone calls we get. I honestly don't think it's a good area for it, but because, I don't feel like I get to dictate what goes in an area, so people are reaching out to us about that. If that's an issue with the board, I don't think that's a deal breaker for us, so if you guys push back, I'm fine.
Is that a use unit that would be required for that kind of use, JJ?
Depends on what you're doing. Sales or,
That's the use that's allowed for growing.
For growing?
So that'd be for a grow-op.
I think it's people who grow within, it would be for people who grow within the space in the building, and then if they want to, manufacture gummies or something like that, they can do that. They're all inside as well. So I think that's the idea.
I'm sorry if I missed one of the use units you were wanting to keep. So agricultural processing, both of them, and then was there a third one and I just missed it?
Industrial light?
General and limited, and then industrial light. So everything else we're fine. We are in agreement. So,
and then for clarification on TE number 5, it's the 5-foot vegetative buffer is the change.
Well, right now, no. So the 1106 and the 931, the vegetative buffer, there is none on 931. There is no vegetative buffer required. There's currently a fence there. There's no vegetative buffer. So that's the fourplex. On the west side of us, there is a 5-foot setback. And I may be mistaken about it, but I don't think there may be a 5-foot vegetative buffer there as well. But because we have the driveway, we're asking for basically just a 5-foot setback. And so
no buffer.
Yeah, no buffer, but a 5-foot setback.
Yeah, and just
from the
allow
boundary.
Yeah, allow the fence that the neighbors have already built to be the boundary, the
visual buffer.
Visual buffer. Thank you.
So, do you not want the horticulture use unit?
We're fine with that.
You don't want a hoop house?
What else does the agricultural processing general and limited allow, besides apparently the growing of marijuana, that is, of course, medicinal?
And why isn't that horticulture?
Like, what else is really allowed under that unit? Can they, burn cow carcasses there, too?
No, it's more about crops and growing and packaging of crops grown on site or off site.
It seems weird.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. I know we have
some protests here today as well, so I'll be happy to reserve the rest of my comments or questions till after that as well, if you guys want to take those. So, thank you.
I have one quick comment before that, because it's not going to require an answer, I don't think. And this is not specifically to you, it's just a lot of applicants. I feel like too many of these there's still disagreement between the applicant and the staff. I don't know why so much of that can't be worked out before. I like when these come in and we agree with all the staff's recommendations, and then we hear from the protesters, and then we have something to balance. But when we have to go through all of that just to get to there, it's starting to be frustrating. Maybe that's why these meetings are going so long. So not just you, it's been a lot lately. Some of the applicants seem really good at it. They come in and say, we agree with all the staff's recommendations. It's been worked through. So a great staff here, and it all can be figured out. So a lot of effort just to get to now let's hear from the protesters.
I think it comes down more often than anything else to a matter of experience. You know, people who come here and appear before us on a regular basis know that, you know, we're going to encourage that, and that, you know, we're going to expect that.
Potentially. I think it's also when they see the report, if there's still disagreement, they could wait, they could resolve it, and 2 weeks later it might be all figured out. Instead, we all figure every one of these out up here because they just want to move forward right now.
What if they don't agree?
Then that's different, but we just worked that out. It just took 30 minutes. There was no disagreement at the end of that, I don't think. I think our JJ giving comments, everybody's giving comments. They ended up agreeing, right? I mean, that was a bunch of applicant and staff discussion to get to agreement without even hearing from the protesters yet. So it's different if they disagree, then they move forward with their application, and that's up to us. You're making my point.
No, I see your point. I see your point.
I do have someone signed up to speak on this item, Sam Day.
1621 North 16th Street, next door. So I have not been able to access the updated SPUD. I was not in the downloadable thing online. Do you guys have a copy of the amended SPUD or master statement?
I don't believe so. I think it was turned in very late.
Thursday, late? Okay, so, I mean, I would just ask that it be continued so we can have a chance to actually look at the SPUD, and that planning can make recommendations based on the current SPUD that has been put up. I mean, it's really hard to talk about something that no one has in writing.
And if I may say, he's making my point in a different way, but yeah, this did not feel right for us after all of that.
I'll go further than that. I don't think that this is ready to be heard at all. The applicant doesn't seem to know even a little bit what they want to do with the property. They eliminated their parking lots because there was protest to them, but they still don't have any idea what they're going to do with it, including whether they're going to keep the current house and use that, and certainly the considerations that would be involved in something like that would be very different than the considerations to have the site scraped and redeveloped. And, you know, I just don't think you're ready to be heard. I don't think you're even close.
If I may. Thank you. Respectfully, I do appreciate your comments. The reason I went into the depth that I did was in anticipation of that very thing. I visited in the hallway with Sam Day about that issue. We respectfully do feel like we are ready to be heard. That's why I went through line item by line item on the changes, so that you have all the information. The staff had all the information. That the staff report was based on the amended. We are in agreement with the staff recommendations and would like for a ruling on the application based on staff recommendations.
Wait a minute. You say you're in agreement with all their staff recommendations?
Well, as I previously...
There was still a lot to be worked out. It was not exactly as the staff recommended. There was a lot there.
There's, I think, three items that we need to discuss.
And maybe it took me a while to get there, but okay.
My apologies.
No problem.
Well, speaking strictly for myself, if you're wanting to get a vote today, you're going to get a no vote from me. So I just do not believe that this application is ready to be heard, not even close. I can remember pretty well when Mr. Day got the approval for the development that he did. It was much more thoughtful, it was much more detailed, and it was residential. I mean,
Is there a, please?
You know, we met on your item. I think generally, most people probably see me as pro-development whenever it comes to these areas, because I do think added density continues the trajectory. But I do have, I didn't know that they hadn't seen an updated
I wasn't aware
SPUD,
of that either.
and so for me, it's like I have an intense sense of fairness with this stuff, and I feel like everybody's got to have their opportunity. And so while I think you and I can work this out today, I don't think it's fair to, your direct neighbors to make a ruling if they haven't had time to review the updated SPUD. Well, and I think we would try to afford you the same courtesy. And so while I respect that you want a ruling, I got to tell you, I don't know that it's going to go in your favor if you guys demand one today, because I think from what I'm hearing, a lot of people have issue with this.
Yeah, can I just add that I agree with you, except that if the changes are minor enough for us to easily be able to conceive of what they are, just like we do with looking at technical evaluations, I think it's fair for us to go ahead and consider those. As far as my understanding, we're just talking about the changes to the square footage, the building height, and when they have to institute the landscape buffer. I don't know that that's substantial enough.
However,
delay the vote.
That's just
and
on
I
the
say
staff.
that knowing that I'm also with you, that I would be, if we had to vote right now, I'm going to vote no.
Right.
So.
That issue is just on the staff recommendations. The issue is that with all those protest letters in there, I can't tell unless you have rescissions of all of those. I can't follow how many of those objections submitted in writing still stand. That's my issue. We haven't even got to those, and I'm not going to be sure who's not in attendance that still has issues because there's just not enough worked out yet.
Well, I hear you all loud and clear, and I do appreciate your candor. I don't want to force a vote if there are significant concerns. I would ask if simply stated that there has been full disclosure today about everything, and so if we were in agreement with the TE as written, except for not allocating the square footages among the floors and reducing the buffer or the vegetative buffer to something less, would that be something that you all might be able to consider?
Can't speak for everybody else, but it sounds, I would like to hear a more concrete plan about what specifically you intend to do with the property.
May I? Yes. So the plan with the property is to build a shell for retail, commercial, office, and residential, or a mixture thereof. So,
May I interrupt? The problem is all the protesters aren't getting the benefit of what you're about to explain. To the gentleman in the audience's point was better. If the neighbors haven't seen any of it, what you're about to say to us, I want all the protesters that submitted writing to also hear it, and they're not going to get the benefit of what you're going through. If I allow you to do it, I'm just saying, okay, now say it again in writing later so that everybody gets a chance to hear it.
if I may, the only applicant, or the only protestant that made a substantive protest of anything other than the parking was Sam Day, and he is here today. That's my feeling and that's my understanding. So I don't want to press the issue if you are, feeling that adamant about it, but I do feel like it's clear enough.
I can say it a few more times.
I heard you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns?
Is that, can I move then to continue item 26 to the next meeting? Is that appropriate at this point?
You can.
May I ask for clarity on what you would like to see?
Thank you. That's the point I'm going to make. I get that we're all frustrated. We want to go home, and I respect that. But before we leave this chamber, we need to give him what our concerns are that's articulated here, because he came and presented the application. It took him a really long time, respectfully, and I get the frustration with that. But at the end of the day, that's why we sit here, So we need to give him clarity about what we want to see that's different, because he's read it out. I agree that they need to hear, you need to talk to these people. The 2-week continuance is the right move. What I will tell you, the feedback I'll give you first, is my concern is you keep referencing 1106, and we very carefully discussed that. The fact that it was on the hard corner was a big part of why they got what they got. And the idea, as I've been taught and clubbed over the head by staff over the last 2 years, is that we want to step down the intensity as it moves back to residential on 16th, which it does, and it backs up to another residential area. So you're not going to get what they got, at least as far as I'm concerned. I can't go that far. And that's what I would tell you is those use units that were clubbed down, I'm in full agreement with all those. You need to think about how you can restrict those further if you want to preserve the right for, medical marijuana, whatever it is, how we can protect those things. And then you need to make sure you've addressed the concerns the best you can and come in with a complete staff report. You do that, I think you are ready to be heard. I think you can do it in 2 weeks. Unfortunately, it's going to be a month, and that's the other sensitivity that I have for you, is that it's a month before we're heard again. So it's going to be December 12th. So just so you understand, it's not 2 weeks, which it normally is.
Are there any other concerns or revisions that you think that, or clarity that we can provide? You had mentioned that it's very
I have
far from-
some. I think you started off by saying you're going to build a shell, and it could be this, it could be that, it could be. You're going to need to decide what it is. The point and purpose of a PUD or SPUD is to trade off limitations and restrictions in the zoning code for benefit. You can't say, well, if we keep the house, then we want to keep the driveway, then we're not going to do landscaping. But if we do that, you're going to have to decide what you're going to do with the property. And you're going to have to decide whether it's going to be commercial or whether it's going to be residential. Those are not, interchangeable things. If you want to do mixed use and have it be both, great. But I absolutely agree with Commissioner Cravens. You're not going to get what your neighbors to the west have. They're very, very intense and lengthy negotiations that went into that zoning, and it is intended to step down. It is intended. And you've got residential next door to you, so you're going to have to keep that in mind. You're going to have to split the difference somewhere. So, I'm not going to design your SPUD for you sitting up here today. I'm not going to tell you what it's going to be when it grows up, but you're going to have to decide.
Okay. So in terms of, if I may, clarity, just 2 things. I know you want to go home, so I'll be brief. The density in the TE, is that objectionable as written?
Not for me.
I'm not even quite sure what you mean by that in this
6 residential
context.
units, you mean?
6 residential units with 7,500 square feet.
He's been at the meetings, he's talked to the neighbors. If he's fine with it, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Well, thank you all for your consideration, and I'll let you vote.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
What was the motion?
I move to continue to the next meeting. Continue item 26 to the next meeting.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to continue item number 26 until December 12th. Cast your votes, please. It's continued. I'm not being curt with you, but I will say this. Nothing about this has to do with the fact that I'm in a hurry to get someplace else. I'll sit here all day long.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
about
been
that.
said to me several times. My point is we cannot spend 2 hours helping every applicant get all the way down. We do on occasion if it's very controversial, but we had not even got to the controversial part yet. So my point is not I got to get home. Although my wife does want me home in time to go to an event with not enough parking. So she was wanting to get there early because there's not enough parking. But other than that, I told her she may have to walk a long ways.
Okay. We've got one more thing. Well, maybe 2 more. We'll see. Do we want to do 27 before we do 22, or do we want to call it one more time?
I mean, 27 is housekeeping for us, right? So
It
I
is,
say we
right.
do 22 and
Okay, let's call
Move on.
22 one more time.
Okay, 22 is an application to rezone 325 North Cemetery Road from PUD 1071 to SPUD 1157.
Is our applicant present? No. So, commissioners, for your pleasure, mine would be to continue it a month. We do have someone signed up to speak, and if he would like to be heard now rather than come back in a month, I would certainly hear him.
Do we, real quick, as he's coming up, I don't know that I've ever been on an item where we've approved it or heard it, I guess,
We
without
have.
the applicant?
We have.
Have we?
It's very rare,
Maybe I
yes.
missed that one
Be very,
meeting where that happened. I
very
don't know.
straightforward, very simple application, but yes, it's been done.
So feasibly, I mean,
There's
this
nothing to prevent us from acting.
to hearing this item today. Okay.
Give us your name and address for the record, please, and thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long day.
First of all, I apologize. I'm 80 years old, and I have a hard time sitting for 4 or 5 hours.
No need.
But anyways, my name is Jim Coco. I live at 517 Christian Lane in Yukon. This property is adjacent to where I live, in a gated community. Originally, I'm a little curious, originally this was filed to rezone to a light industrial district. And now all of a sudden it's to a simplified plan unit development district. What's the difference? Is this a backdoor way of getting what the guy wants to do?
Generally, when people come to us with straight zoning requests that are in difficult or complex areas, we often require them to resubmit that through a PUD or SPUD process, just because it gives us the opportunity to tailor the application or the zoning if we choose to grant it in ways that we don't have with a straight zoning request. So if it's that they need that zoning, that level of zoning, say I-1, for a specific reason, and there are other uses we can eliminate or ways that we can buffer it and that sort of thing, we can do that through a PUD or SPUD. I don't know that they have in any way fundamentally changed what it is they're asking for. Yeah. It's just the sort of the context, the vehicle, if you will, that's changed.
Well, then I'll go under the premise that they want to really turn this lot into a industrial property. This is a residential area. As you can see, there's residents to the west and to the north. Across the street is a multiple use area. They're building homes and other things. And then south to Reno is, well, where that retention pond is. Also, where they want to make their entrance, I got to tell you, the fall from the front of the lot on Cemetery to back into the lot is almost 8 feet. And it serves as the stormwater runoff for both Settlers Ridge and the springs at Settlers Ridge. There's an underground drain that goes from our ponds to that area and also to that area from Settlers. And it goes down and drains into the settling pond that you see on the map. Normally, before it gets there, this area is completely like a marsh. Okay, and I know that's not your problem nor my problem, but like I say, and he wants to build a mini storage unit there, okay, in a dentist office. Well, the mini storage, that's not appropriate for that area. The dentist office, who knows?
Can I ask you, Mr. Coco, do you have a copy of the staff report for this case?
No.
I would like for you to provide Mr. Coco with a copy of that.
I do have one page, though.
It has, and a copy of the master design statement, if we have one handy. It states specifically what the uses are that he not necessarily intends to build, but would be allowed to build under the application that he has filed here under the SPUD. It does have an O2 underlying zoning, which will control things like height and setback and that kind of thing. But there's a whole list of uses there, starting with low-impact institutional and running down to personal storage. Medical offices certainly are one of those things, bed and breakfast, things like that. But you've been so patient here today, and I will sit and listen to you as long as you want to talk, as far as that's concerned. But I would really encourage you to take home with you the staff report and look it over and see whether, whether the concerns that you brought with you today still apply to this application. I think it tells us that he intends to make a personal storage use unit out of it, so that at least is very much applicable. I don't know if there's anything in here that might give you comfort. On the final page of the staff report, there are 3 what we call technical evaluations that are listed, so limitations that we believe ought to be imposed on the applications if we decide to approve it. If there are other things about the property that you think could be done that would ameliorate your concerns, we would like to hear that from you. Lighting, access, whether or not there are, and I'm not trying to push you one way or the other about that. If you are able to come back to us on the 12th of December, I would really like you to do that, because even though we're hearing you today, that's a long time from now for us to keep that in mind.
All right, I guess our biggest objection is it's not an appropriate rezoning to rezone it industrial in a residential area. If we wanted to live in an industrial area, we'd bought homes there. We don't expect to wake up one morning and find us in an industrial zone.
The underlying zoning for the SPUD is O2, which is an office underlying zoning. I understand it's a little hard to say personal storage is an office use, but as far as it being industrial, you might give some thought to what you think would be an appropriate use of the property right here on Cemetery Road.
Okay, but this is rescheduled until?
The 12th of December. I'd like to be able to tell you it'll be much closer to the top of the agenda next time.
Oh, yeah. Well, just for your information, we've heard some things about this property that the sale may have fallen apart, that it may be withdrawn.
That may be why he's not here.
We've tried numerous times to contact the applicant, and we're getting no response from emails. The phone number we have is not working, so it may be appropriate to you could continue it indefinitely. You could always bring it back up.
In which case he would receive second notice?
He would receive notice. He wouldn't have to come back.
I'd be all in favor of that. Okay, so I think what we're about to do is continue this indefinitely, in which case you won't need to come back in December. If it is to be heard, you'll receive another notice.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming and for sitting here all this time.
Sir, you might take note of what would be allowed there already without changing anything, because it's already zoned as a PUD 1071, and those things they could be allowed to do without coming to us.
And there's a little
it's this graph.
Matrix at the front, graph.
This graph right here that shows what they would be allowed to do without coming to us at all.
Right now today. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Okay, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to continue SPUD 1157 indefinitely.
Second. I have a motion second to continue item number 22 indefinitely. Please cast your votes. It is continued indefinitely.
Item 26 is the adoption of the 2020 Planning Commission meeting schedule.
I've said before on these, I just want to throw it out there, I'm for eliminating the summer schedule still. I think if we keep our meetings every 2 weeks, we've got enough people that if somebody wants to take a vacation, take it. But I hate whenever we put that 2-week span in between and we come back to, an agenda that's just unwieldy. I would rather we keep these going, but whatever. It's not a big deal to me. That's just my feeling.
We are building a little, did you have something else you want to say about that?
I'm going to add, I completely agree with Asa.
If we're headed that way, I'll propose we go to all monthly. All of them monthly.
Did we want to say something about this, a little bit of extra time we're building into these?
This is the schedule that we generally adopt for PUDs and SPUDs and preliminary plats that gives us an extra 2 weeks to review those. And we have another schedule that is a 2-week faster timeline for regular zoning cases and easement closing, special permits. We're going to just adopt this one meeting schedule for all our zoning cases, all types of our development cases. So we don't have 2 different deadlines and meeting dates we're dealing with. Gives us a couple of extra weeks to review all these cases.
So it should eliminate a lot of confusion and just sort of extra angst in the processing of them. Hasn't been any objection raised from the development community, so it'll just be a lot easier to administer. And so,
We just moving to adopt the calendar?
we are.
I'll make a motion to adopt the calendar.
Second.
The motion is second to adopt the calendar. I approve item number 27. Cast your votes. It's approved. I always get to this part. So that's the end of our items to be heard. Additional items, communications and reports, planning commission committees, planning commission members. Anybody have anything they want to offer? No. Planning department.
I have nothing.
Development services.
Thank you all for working through a difficult docket.
Municipal counselor? Citizens to be heard. Got rid of all of them. Other business? Adjournment? The motion is second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.